The sky tears at 6:14 a.m. It doesn't announce itself, no seismic tremors, no atmospheric pressure drops that the regime's instruments could catch, no electromagnetic spikes to trip the surveillance grid. The distortion just happens. A vertical, jagged split in the dead air above the eastern commercial district of Metropolis, precise, deliberate, the way a sentence is split by a word that changes its entire meaning. It isn't torn open, it is parted. The distinction matters. Tearing requires outside force. This opened from the inside, like a door swinging wide because whatever is on the other side has finally decided it is time to leave the room. The distortion holds for 4 seconds. From it, a man in black steps out. He lands without a sound. That is the first wrong thing, not impossible. The regime has forced this world to swallow the impossible a dozen times over, but physically, fundamentally wrong. A body descending from that height requires violence. There is no crater, no shattered asphalt, no shockwave rattling the high-rise windows. He simply arrives at street level the way a dark thought arrives, without transition, fully formed and already present. He stands dead center in the intersection of Schuster and Fifth. It is completely empty. The regime's curfew lifts at 6:30 a.m. It is 6:14 a.m., and the people of Metropolis have learned through brutal, highly publicized repetition that those 16 gray area minutes are not safe minutes to exist outside. The streets are clean. That is the first detail he registers, not the armored surveillance drones banking in slow, predatory circles 200 feet up, not the massive regime insignia plastered across every vertical surface, not the suffocating, heavy silence of 8 million people desperately managing their own breathing to avoid consequence. The streets are clean, but not with the pride of a city that cares for itself. It is the sterile, scrape-draw cleanliness of a surface that has been violently disciplined. There is no stray litter, because litter is a visible disorder, and visible disorder attracts the kind of attention no one in Metropolis can survive anymore. He stares at the empty asphalt for a long moment. His expression doesn't shift, it doesn't even twitch. His face operates in a register several floors beneath the human concept of emotion. He isn't experiencing the city, he is reading it, cold, unhurried, and slightly detached. The heavy, clinical attention of a researcher peering down into a petri dish. Slowly, he looks up. He stares at the sterile asphalt for a long moment. His expression doesn't shift. It operates in a register several floors beneath the human concept of emotion. It is the heavy, absolute attention of a researcher peering down at a specimen. He looks up. 6:15 a.m. The drone passes overhead on its programmed arc. It banks left at the corner, its sensor array sweeping the intersection in the ruthless, 360-degree grid mandated for all commercial districts. It does not register him. Not because the tech is broken, the optics are flawless. The thermal array flares bright red with his heat signature. The bioscanner instantly catches his telemetry and violently cross-references it against the regime's master population database in real time. It pings the server. Exactly 0.4 seconds later, the server chokes. It spits back an error code it has literally never generated because it possesses absolutely no protocol for a ghost. No match found. The drone blindly continues its patrol arc. Miles away, deep inside a freezing monitoring station, an automated red alert flashes into existence. But totalitarianism is, at its core, just violent bureaucracy. The alert is instantly assigned to a queue. It sits there, buried behind 11 other automated alerts, waiting patiently to be processed in the exact order it was received by an exhausted, terrified analyst. The man in black doesn't move. He just watches the drone complete its turn and vanish behind a skyscraper. He watches the drone complete its turn and vanish. He watches it with the specific, detached interest of a predator observing a very complicated, entirely harmless insect. Then he turns his head. On the second floor of the southwest apartment block, a woman is hovering near her window. She isn't visible from the street in any conventional sense. She's standing exactly 2 feet back from the glass, drowning in the heavy shadow of her unlit living room. It is the exact paranoid distance the citizens of Metropolis have learned to keep, close enough to see the street, too far back to be logged by the patrols. She is staring down at him. He looks directly back into her eyes. She steps back, but she doesn't flinch. She doesn't jerk away in terror. She retreats with a horrifying, practiced slowness. It is the agonizingly deliberate movement of a prey animal that has beaten its own survival instincts into submission, because moving fast triggers the motion sensors, and sensors T. Rigor flags, and flags trigger midnight visits from men in heavy boots who change your life in ways you cannot change back. She melts backward into the dark, gone. He stares at the empty space for a heartbeat, then shifts his gaze to the adjacent window. A piece of paper is taped to the inside of the glass. A child's crayon drawing, a yellow sun, a blue sky, and a crude figure in red and blue floating in the center, arms outstretched, the universal posture of a savior. The drawing is ancient. The Scotch tape has yellowed and curled at the edges, baking and cracking in the sun for years. The sun the kid drew is massive, and the savior beneath it is incredibly small. The proportions are violently accurate in a way the child definitely didn't intend. He stares at the curled paper for exactly 6 seconds. When he finally speaks, his voice doesn't echo. It just drops into the dead street like a stone down a dry well. Blackgoku, a god who still tolerates mortals. A long, heavy pause. He smiles, and there is absolutely nothing kind in it. He looks at the symbol on the building across the street, red and blue, the stylized letter, present on this building and the one behind it and the one behind that, repeating into the distance, the same mark on every surface, telling everyone in sight the same sentence. This world belongs to someone. That someone is not you. Blackgoku, how inefficient. Not contempt, not the hot register of someone finding something beneath them. The cool, flat register of a scientist annotating an experimental result that confirms a hypothesis they were not hoping to confirm. He turns and walks north. He does not hurry. 6:19 a.m. The city performs its opening. At 6:30 exactly, the curfew ends and Metropolis does what it does every morning. It opens like a machine that has been waiting for the command. Shops unlock, transit lines fill. Citizens move through their established routes with the particular quality of movement that years of surveillance-aware living produces. Purposeful, direct, eyes forward, the behavioral profile of people who have learned that efficiency of movement is a form of safety, that deviation from routine is a flag, that the best way to exist in this city is to exist as predictably as possible. A vendor at the corner of 9th sets out fruit. He does not look at the building across the street, where the insignia is stenciled at 3-meter intervals along the entire block face. He has not looked at it in 4 years. Not because he doesn't see it, he sees it. He sees it every morning and every evening and in the hours between when business is slow and he has time to look at things that are not the fruit. He sees it the way people see things they have decided not to have an opinion about, which is fully and at all times, and without the acknowledgement that would make the seeing real. 2 regime soldiers complete their handover at the checkpoint on the corner, the shift change performed with the brisk procedural efficiency of people who are being watched by the same system they are watching for, who understand that the performance of competence is monitored with the same attention as actual competence. An older man walks past the checkpoint. He has his papers out before the soldier asks. The soldier doesn't ask. The old man keeps the papers out anyway, held at chest height, available, the physical posture of someone who has been stopped enough times at enough checkpoints that the gesture of availability has become reflex. The body performing compliance before the mind has processed whether compliance is currently required. The soldier looks through him. The old man walks on. He puts his papers away. His hands are steady. He has very steady hands. Blackgoku observes this exchange from the opposite side of the street, the old man, the papers, the soldier who looked through him, the hands that did not shake. He observes it with the complete, unhurried attention of someone who was looking for exactly this. He has found it. He has found it in the vendor who does not look at the insignia, and in the woman who stepped back from the window slowly, and in the child's drawing with the proportions that tell the truth, and in the old man's steady hands that have been made steady by a very specific kind of practice. He has found the shape of this world. He turns the shape of it over in his mind the way you turn a diagnosis over, not surprised by the result, not gratified by the confirmation, simply registering it with the comprehensive attention it deserves before moving to the next phase. 6:31 a.m. The regime's database returned no match found. This is accurate in the technical sense. There is no record of him in any database this world maintains, no biosignature match, no dimensional registry entry, no file in the contingency archives that Bruce Wayne built and that Superman does not know Bruce Wayne built. Technically accurate. In the more relevant sense, it is precisely wrong. He is a match. The database simply does not have the category. The category is a being who was once something else, who looked at the thing he was, its softness, its attachment, its irrational loyalty to creatures that did not deserve loyalty, its willingness to extend grace to things that consumed grace and produced nothing in return and found it wanting. Who made a choice, not in the way that people who romanticize transformation describe choices as a moment of clarity or revelation or the clean narrative break of before and after. A choice made the way structural decisions are made, by removing what does not serve the design and retaining what does. What he retained, the power, the precision, the ability to read an energy signature from 20 kilometers and know its source before it knows it is being read. What he removed, the part that would have looked at the old man's steady hands and felt something that interfered with clear thinking. He did not remove it entirely. He relocated it. It operates now not as the warm, obstructive weight of feeling, but as the cool, useful instrument of aesthetic judgment. He does not feel the old man's fear. He appreciates it, the way you appreciate evidence of a poorly designed system, with the detached recognition of someone who understands both what the system is doing and why it should not exist. This world, he has determined in the 22 minutes since his arrival, is a poorly designed system. Not because Superman seized control, seizure itself is neither good nor bad, it is simply the application of superior force to available space, which is what superior force does. Blackgoku has no objection to that principle. His objection is to the execution. A god who tolerates mortals is a god operating below his design specifications. The tolerance is not mercy. Mercy implies the tolerated thing has value worth preserving. The tolerance here is something worse, habit. Superman is not tolerating humanity because he has assessed it and found it worthy of preservation. He is tolerating it because he was made among them, because the cellular memory of belonging is slower to revise than the intellectual decision to rule, because there is a version of him, the version that grew up in Smallville, that learned what hope meant from people who believed in it, that is still, beneath the regime and the fist and the carefully maintained symbol, attached. The attachment is the flaw. It produces the clean streets, which is a god managing a world he cannot bring himself to simply correct. It produces the symbol, which is a god still trying to be loved by the thing he is controlling. It produces the checkpoint, which is a god who needs the compliance to be visible, which means the god needs something from the people he rules, which means the god is not, in any meaningful sense, ruling. He is performing ruling. For an audience he cannot stop caring about. Blackgoku looks at the symbol on the nearest building. Blackgoku to himself, to the diagnosis, to the specific kind of failure that only something almost great can produce. You built a cage and put yourself inside it. He says it without pleasure, without contempt, with the flat, clear tone of a finding being entered into the record. 6:44 a.m. Batman. He has been watching for 9 minutes. The insurgency's network patchwork, resilient in the way of things that survive by being distributed rather than centralized, produced the anomaly at 6:17. The distortion above the Eastern Commercial District, the thermal signature with no database match, the drone's missed registration, which flagged in a monitoring queue and was processed by a human operative who understood what no match found meant in a city where the regime has registered every living being above the age of 6. It means something arrived that the regime did not bring. The operative called it in through the memorized code phrase system. and the call reached Batman 40 seconds later on a frequency that the regime has been trying to locate for 11 months and has not located, partly because of the technical measures Bruce Wayne took when he built the network, and partly because the regime's signals intelligence is run by people who are very good at finding things the regime expects to find and less good at finding things the regime has not considered looking for. He processed the call in the cave. He is processing it now, 3 kilometers from the Eastern District, in a concealed position on the underside of a regime transit overpass, watching the figure move north on the street below through a monocular that cost more than most people in this city earn in a year. He is watching the way the figure moves. Not the power, the regime has people with power, Superman has allies with power. The calculation of power is the calculation Batman does automatically and has done for so many years that it is indistinguishable from breathing. He is not watching the power, he is watching the choices. The figure could move faster. He is choosing not to. He is walking at the pace of someone with no destination, not lost, not aimless, at the pace of someone for whom the moving is the point, who is extracting information from the city at street level in the specific way that requires street-level speed. He is reading the city. Batman sits with this observation for a moment. The last time he watched something read a city the way this figure is reading it, it was himself, 20 years ago in a different city, in a version of the world where the reading was survival rather than assessment. He recognizes the methodology because he built his own version of it from the same raw material, the understanding that a city's fear is its most honest cartography. This figure is reading the fear and finding something in it. Batman does not know what it is finding. He knows it is not nothing. Batman into the earpiece to the operative on the other end, voice level, the arrival, has it engaged anyone? Operative negative, it's been walking, just walking. Soldiers at the 3rd Street checkpoint saw it pass, didn't stop it. The pause. Batman, why not? Operative, we don't know. The checkpoint camera shows them watching it go. Neither of them reached for their radio. Batman looks through the monocular. The figure is 2 blocks north now, moving past the old Daily Planet building, the one that still has the globe on top, slightly tilted since the incident 3 years ago that the regime's official account describes as a structural failure and that everyone in the insurgency knows was something else. Batman, they were afraid. Operative, of what? It hadn't done anything. Batman watches the figure move under the globe's tilted shadow. Batman, it didn't need to. He tracks the figure north. His working theory is forming in the specific way his theories always form, not as a leap, as an accumulation. Everything the figure has done since arrival is data, the choice to walk, the direction chosen, the specific intersections where it paused and the things it paused to look at, the vendor who didn't look at the insignia, the woman at the window, the old man's papers. It wasn't looking at the city. It was building a case. Batman to himself, to the monocular, to the accumulation. You're not here to fight him. The figure disappears around the corner of Sigil and 8th. Batman, you're here to judge him. He moves to follow. 7:02 a.m. Superman does not sleep. This is not a physiological statement. His body does not require sleep in the conventional sense. The solar energy that sustains him operates on a different cycle than the metabolic rhythms of biological rest. It is a behavioral statement. He does not sleep because sleeping requires surrendering the overview, and he has not been able to surrender the overview since the decision that made the overview necessary. He is above the cloud layer at this hour, as he is most mornings, the altitude that gives him the full spread of the eastern seaboard, the thermal signatures of 40 million people going about their managed lives, the patrol formation of the drone network he built and maintains, and sometimes, in the honest hours before the day fully starts, looks at with the specific emotion he does not have a clean name for. The closest name is necessary. He looks at the city below the clouds. He looks at Metropolis specifically, because he always looks at Metropolis specifically, because Metropolis is the first place he decided to protect, and the protection has changed its shape so many times since then that protecting it now requires protecting people from the knowledge of what protecting them has cost. His sensors register the anomaly at 6:53, 36 minutes after arrival, a delay produced by the fact that the figure arrived without energy discharge, without dimensional displacement radiation, without any of the signatures his sensor array is calibrated to detect, because his sensor array is calibrated to detect the things he has encountered before. What he registers at 6:53 is not the figure itself. It is a gap. A moving absence in the grid of biosignatures below. Not invisible, the figure has a thermal signature, has mass, displaces air as it moves. But the bioidentifier, which cross-references against every known energy type in his experience, returns the same result the drone's instruments returned. No match. He is very still for a moment. Then he looks down through the cloud layer at the Eastern Commercial District. He looks at the intersection of Sigil and 8th, where the figure has just turned. He does not descend immediately. He watches. From up here, the city is very orderly. The transit lines move on schedule. The streets are clean. The checkpoints are staffed. The symbol is present on every rooftop he can see, which is every rooftop, the full spread of metropolis arrayed below high. Like a demonstration of something he decided to build. The figure moves through it like a variable that the demonstration did not account for. He watches it move. He does not know what it is. For the first time in 4 years, he does not know what something is. He sits with this the way he has learned to sit with things he does not know, not with the openness he was taught in Smallville, because that openness has a cost he is no longer willing to pay, but with the compressed, contained patience of someone who has learned that rushing toward an unknown produces worse outcomes than waiting for the unknown to reveal itself. The figure moves north. It is not moving toward the Hall of Justice, not toward any military installation, not toward any population center with sufficient density to serve as leverage. It is moving toward the center of the city. Toward the open plaza at the corner of 5th and Navik, where the regime installed the memorial 2 years ago, the monument to the day the decision was made, the day the world changed, rendered in bronze and steel, and the specific aesthetic language of things that are built to be permanent. The figure is walking toward the monument. Superman's jaw tightens. 1 degree, invisible from any distance. Superman to no one, to the cloud layer, to the absence in the grid that is moving through his city like a conclusion he has not reached yet. Who are you? Below, the figure does not answer. It does not know it was asked. It walks. 7:11 a.m. The plaza is empty. It is always empty at this hour, not because the regime prohibits presence here. The regime officially encourages the monument's visitation as an act of civic participation, the language of the official encouragement using words like reflection and gratitude and the peace we have been given. It is empty because the people of Metropolis have developed, through the accumulation of many small experiences across 4 years, the instinct that proximity to things the regime values is proximity to the regime's attention, and proximity to the regime's attention is a condition to be avoided even when the attention is notionally benign. The plaza is empty. The monument is not. The monument occupies the center of the plaza with the specific authority of bronze, the self-assured permanence of metal that believes its own weight makes it true. It is 8 meters tall. The figure it depicts is in flight, one arm extended forward, the posture of someone moving toward something rather than away from it, the aesthetic choice of people who understood that the monument needed to communicate direction, purpose, inevitability. Blackgoku stands at its base. He looks up at it. He looks at the extended arm, the direction it points, east, toward the rising sun, toward the future. The regime's language always locates in the east because east is where mornings come from, and the regime has always understood the power of co-opting the language of beginnings. He looks at the face. The sculptor rendered it with the specific idealization that monuments require, the features sharpened, the expression composed into something between determination and serenity, the look of someone who has made the hard decision and found peace in the making of it. He studies the face. He studies it the way he studied the streets and the vendor and the old man's hands, with the comprehensive attention of someone building a complete picture from its components, finding in each component the evidence of the larger thing it belongs to. He finds it in the extended arm in the eastward direction, and the idealized face, and the bronze permanence in the empty plaza, and the symbol on every surface, and the woman who stepped back from the window slowly, and the old man's papers held ready before they were asked for. He finds the thing this world is. Not a regime. Not a dictatorship in the language that political science uses for the category. Something more specific and more sad than either of those words. A man who loved something so much he destroyed it trying to keep it safe. Who built a cage to protect the thing he loved and then stayed inside the cage with it, because leaving would mean admitting the cage was wrong and the admission was not available. Who is still 8 meters up in bronze, reaching east toward a morning that the monument insists is coming, and that the city below the monument has quietly, comprehensively, stopped believing in. Blackgoku looks at the extended arm. Blackgoku, you could have been something the universe hadn't seen before. Not to the statue. To the energy signature he has been tracking since 650, the one at 40,000 feet, above the cloud layer, watching him the way a person watches something that has walked into the center of everything they built and stood there like a question. The energy signature above the clouds. That has been watching him for 18 minutes. And has not descended. Blackgoku, a mortal who's became something greater, who used that greatness to correct the fundamental error. He turns his face upward, gold eyes toward the cloud cover, the precise angle of someone addressing a specific location. Blackgoku, instead you became a warden. The plaza is silent. The bronze figure reaches east. The cloud layer holds. Blackgoku, the last line of the judgment, delivered the way findings are delivered, completely, without heat, with the finality of a conclusion that has been reached through evidence rather than feeling. Even gods can fail their potential. You are the proof. Above the cloud layer, the energy signature moves. Superman descends. Not fast. With the specific, contained velocity of someone who has decided that the speed of the descent communicates something and has chosen what it communicates. The clouds part around him. He emerges into the morning light above the plaza, the red cape, the symbol, the composed expression that the monument sculptor tried to render and got approximately right, and he looks down at the figure at the base of his monument. At the face looking up at him. At the gold eyes that are not afraid. That are not impressed. That are watching him descend the way the scientist watches the specimen and finding in the descent, in the controlled speed, in the composed expression, in the deliberate framing of the arrival, the confirmation of everything they came here to confirm. Superman measured, the voice of someone who has had 4 years to develop the specific register that communicates authority without requiring volume. You're standing in my city. Blackgoku looks at him. A long pause. The pause of someone consulting a complete picture and selecting from it the single most accurate response. Blackgoku, I'm standing in your monument to yourself. A pause. The city stopped being yours the moment they learned to walk past the symbol without seeing it. The plaza holds the silence between them. The bronze figure reaches east. The morning has fully arrived. The judgment has begun. 8:47 a.m. The operation has a name. Regime doctrine assigns alphanumeric designations to all enforcement actions above the threshold of 4 personnel, a bureaucratic habit that serves the dual purpose of creating a paper trail for internal review and producing, in the soldiers who carry out the actions, the psychological comfort of operating within a named and therefore legitimate framework. The name matters. Actions with names belong to systems. Systems have oversight. Oversight implies accountability, and accountability implies that the people inside the system are not simply doing what they are doing, they are executing a sanctioned function within an established structure. The name of this operation is Cobalt 7. Cobalt 7 involves 11 soldiers, 2 armored transports, and a target list of 4 individuals whose insurgency-adjacent activity has been flagged by the regime's behavioral analysis network across the past 60 days. The network does not require evidence in the legal sense. It requires patterns. Patterns of association, of movement deviation, of purchase history, of the specific behavioral signatures that people who are thinking about resistance produce without knowing they are producing them. The extra-long route home that avoids a checkpoint, the conversation that stops when a regime frequency is detected nearby, the library access log that shows an interest in pre-regime constitutional law. 4 people. Their names are in the operation file. The operation file is sealed at the classification level. That means the 4 people whose names are in it will not know their names are in it until Cobalt 7 arrives at their doors. The first transport rolls down Kirby Street at 8:47. The second follows 40 meters behind, the standard interval for urban enforcement deployment. The 11 soldiers are distributed across both transports with the tactical geometry that the regime's training manual specifies for residential apprehension operations, a configuration optimized for speed, coverage, and the specific suppression of the instinct in bystanders to intervene. The operation is running exactly as designed. Kirby Street, 8:49 a.m. The transports stop. Not at the target address, 2 blocks north of it, the standard staging distance that keeps the operation's approach invisible from the target's windows until the element of surprise is no longer tactically necessary. The lead soldier checks the operation file on his wrist display. He confirms the address. He issues the advance order through the tactical channel. 8 soldiers dismount from the first transport in the practice sequence that makes the dismount look like a single motion rather than 8 individual decisions. They move south along Kirby in the stacked formation, weapons configured for compliance rather than lethality, because the operation's rules of engagement specify compliance first against civilian targets. The lead soldier follows. The 2 remaining soldiers maintain transport security according to protocol. Everything is proceeding according to protocol. They cover 1 block. They cover half of the second block. At the junction of Kirby and Infantino, they stop. Not by command, not in response to any threat the formation has identified or any order transmitted through the tactical channel. They stop because the street ahead of them has changed. The change is not dramatic. It is not the kind of change that produces the combat response, the spike of cortisol, the narrowing of peripheral vision, the specific bodily acceleration that training is designed to control but cannot fully prevent. The change is quieter than that and therefore harder to respond to. The street ahead is simply different from the street behind. Behind them, Kirby Street at 8:49 a.m., the ordinary textures of a regime-managed morning, the residents making themselves scarce the way they do when enforcement vehicles are present, the specific quality of a street performing its obedience. Ahead of them, the same street, same buildings, same morning light. And a man standing in the center of it. Facing them. Black gold eyes, he held the posture of a man who had been waiting for them specifically. He knew their exact transport interval. He knew their exact formation advance. And he had positioned himself at the precise, mathematically perfect distance that allowed the strike team to see him fully, right before he could see them fully. It was the exact distance the regime's tactical doctrine identified as the point of maximum psychological friction. He chose that distance deliberately. The lead soldier raised a heavy, armored fist, the universal halt signal transmitted simultaneously through physical gesture and encrypted tactical comms. The formation ground to a halt. Lead soldier command voice, the loud, chest-deep projection trained into men who need to weaponize authority against terrified people. Identify yourself, compliance posit. Iron hands. Blackgoku, no projection, no command register. The flat, bored tone of a man finishing a sentence he started before the other person even spoke. Your operation file has 4 names in it. The lead soldier's hand twitched toward his shoulder radio. Blackgoku Reinhold, Sira, Akafer, and Park. The hand froze in midair. Blackgoku, you will return to your staging point. You will transmit a malfunction code to your command channel. You will report that Cobalt 7 encountered a sensor anomaly requiring an immediate operational reset. A suffocating pause. The formation consisted of 11 highly trained soldiers carrying compliance-configured kinetic weapons. They were backed by 2 armored transports. They operated with the full, unchecked institutional authority of the most powerful totalitarian regime in human history. Nobody moved a muscle. Lead soldier, his training fighting his survival instinct, his training actively losing. This is a regime enforcement. Blackgoku, I know what it is. He looked at the lead soldier, just the gold eyes locking on, complete, quiet attention. It wasn't a look assessing a threat, because that assessment had already been completed 0.2 seconds ago, and the result was entirely uninteresting. Blackgoku, I am offering you the version of this morning where you go home. The lead soldier looked at him. He looked back at his 11 heavily armed men. He looked at the lone figure in the street, a man who hadn't shifted his weight, who wasn't breathing heavily, who was standing in the dead center of Kirby Street, the exact way a period stands at the end of a sentence that has finished making its point. The soldier keyed his radio and transmitted the malfunction code. The formation slowly, carefully withdrew. The engines of the transports whined as they rolled back north. Kirby Street was empty again. Blackgoku watched the transports until they vanished around the concrete bend. He didn't look satisfied. He didn't look triumphant. He just looked the way a mathematician looks when a complex equation produces the exact result it was supposed to. Confirmed, filed, moved past. He turns south. He walks toward the target address. He knocks on a heavy, peeling metal door. Inside, Reinhold, Sira, Akafer, and Park are holding their breath. They have been waiting for the sound of splintering wood and regime boots since the behavioral algorithm flagged them 60 agonizing days ago. A single bloodshot eye appears at the rusted peephole. Blackgoku speaking to the peephole, to the 4 sweating people who have no idea why the executioners never arrived. You have approximately 4 hours before their system recalibrates and refiles the error. Use them. He turns and walks away before the deadbolt even clicks. He doesn't wait to see if they believe him. They will or they won't. Either outcome is entirely theirs. Situation room 9:03 a.m. The malfunction code tripped at 8:52 a.m. By 8:54 a.m., the regime's pattern recognition servers violently cross-referenced it against 6 similar glitches in the Eastern District over 19 days. It breached the threshold for statistical equipment failure and immediately triggered the protocol for coordinated insurgency. By 9:03 a.m., the alert is burning blood red on the Situation Room's primary holographic display. Wonder Woman is staring at it. She brings the specific, heavy quality of attention reserved for things that require immediate physical elimination rather than containment. Wonder Woman to the room, to Cyborg, to the glaring red screen, the spatial anomaly from this morning, and now this, same district, same time window. Cyborg working from his station, 3 screens reflecting off his metallic half-face. He organizes data the only way a half-machine mind can, by brutal relevance, not chronology. The energy signature from the 614 arrival is still a ghost. I've run it against every dimensional database we have. Kryptonian, no. Atlantean, no. Apocalyptian, nothing. It isn't matching any framework in the multiverse. He pauses. The faint, high-pitched whir of his internal cooling fans fills the silence. Cyborg, that isn't the part making my teeth grind. Wonder Woman, then what is? Cyborg, the signature isn't just unclassified, it feels familiar, but in a way I can't source, like hearing a single word in a dead language and somehow knowing exactly what it means. He taps the console. Whatever this guy is, he isn't new to the universe, he's just new to us. Wonder Woman's eyes track the map, the Eastern District, the Cobalt 7 patrol route, the 614 craterless arrival point, the glowing digital thread connecting them all into the shape of a deliberate, mocking morning. Wonder Woman, it walked straight through a heavy enforcement patrol without a single casualty, without leaving a mark. It sent 11 armed soldiers back to base with a prepared cover story. She turns her back to the display, her jaw tight. T isn't just power, Victor, that is absolute contempt. Cyborg or efficiency. Wonder Woman, in this context, they are the exact same thing. She strides to the secondary monitor, a live feed from the drone array trying desperately to maintain a lock. The phantom signature keeps vanishing into concrete structures and re-emerging blocks away, casually breaking the surveillance net. It is moving west, toward the geographic center of the city. Wonder Woman tapping her earpiece, switching to the frequency that reaches the stratosphere. Clark. A long, heavy burst of static. Superman COMMS, his voice dropping down from 40,000 feet, cold, unbearably heavy. I see it. Wonder Woman, it dismissed Cobalt 7, 11 men. Superman without casualties. Wonder Woman, that shouldn't affect our. Superman, it didn't kill them, Diana. The specific gravity of that sentence crushes the oxygen in the Situation Room. It isn't just the words, it is the delivery. The dark, defensive register of a dictator realizing that true, absolute power doesn't actually need to execute people to make them kneel. She lets the silence hang for 2 agonizing seconds. Wonder Woman, we don't know what it wants. Superman, I am going to find out. Wonder Woman, Clark. Superman, alone. Wonder Woman is reading it with the specific quality of attention she brings to things that require elimination rather than containment. Wonder Woman to the room, to Cyborg, to the display, the anomaly from this morning, and now this, same district, same window. Cyborg from his station, 3 screens active, the data organized in the specific way that a mind partly made of processing architecture organizes data, by relevance rather than chronology. The energy signature from the 617 arrival is still unclassified. I've run it against every dimensional database we have. Kryptonian, no. Atlantean, no. Apocalyptian, no. It's not in any framework I can find a match for. He pauses. Cyborg, that's not the part that bothers me. Wonder Woman, what is? Cyborg, the signature isn't just unclassified, it's familiar in a way I can't source, like hearing a word in a language you don't speak and knowing what it means anyway. He looks at the display. Whatever this is, it's not new to the universe, it's just new to us. Wonder Woman looks at the map on the primary display, the Eastern District, the Cobalt 7 route, the malfunction code's origin point, the 617 arrival location, the thread connecting them into the shape of a deliberate morning. Wonder Woman, it walked through our enforcement operation without a casualty, without a mark, sent 11 soldiers back with a cover story already prepared. She turns from the display. That's not power, that's contempt. Cyborg or efficiency. Wonder Woman, in this context, those are the same thing. She moves to the secondary display, the live feed from the Eastern District surveillance network, the moving signature that the drone array has been attempting to maintain a lock on since 617, losing it every time it enters a structure and requiring it 20 minutes later when it reappears on a street 3 blocks from where it was last logged. The signature is moving west, toward the center of the city. Wonder Woman to the comms, to the frequency that reaches 40,000 feet, Clark. The pause. Superman COMMS, I see it. Wonder Woman, it dismissed Cobalt 7, 11 soldiers. Superman without casualties. Wonder Woman, that shouldn't affect our. Superman, it didn't kill them, Diana. The specific weight of that sentence in the Situation Room, not its content but its delivery, the way he says it, the register that contains something she cannot immediately name and therefore cannot immediately counter. She lets it sit for 2 seconds. Wonder Woman, we don't know what it wants. Superman, I'm going to find out. Wonder Woman, Clark. Superman, alone. The comms frequency produces the specific silence of a channel that is still open, but has stopped receiving. Wonder Woman looks at Cyborg. Cyborg looks at his screens. Cyborg quietly to the data, to the unclassified signature moving west through the city. The energy reading just spiked. He knows Superman is coming. Wonder Woman, how? Cyborg, because he's been waiting for it. Novik Plaza, 9:19 a.m. He is at the monument when Superman lands. This is not coincidence. He returned to the monument specifically, the way you return to the location of a diagnosis when you want the subject of the diagnosis to find you there, to have the conversation in the place that contains the evidence for every point you intend to make. Superman lands 20 feet away. Not a combat landing, not the aggressive ground strike descent that the regime uses for high-threat engagements. A landing that communicates measured authority, controlled, both feet finding the plaza stones simultaneously, the cape settling her. Und him with the precise, unhurried fall of something that has been choreographed by 4 years of landings into exactly this expression of composed power. The two of them in the empty plaza. The monument between them and above them, one arm extended east. Superman looks at the figure in black. The gold eyes, the black gi, the posture that has not changed since the intersection at 6:14, the same quality of stillness, the same complete absence of the behavioral signals that bodies emit when they are in proximity to things they assess as threats. He is not assessed as a threat. Superman does not know what he is assessed as. This is new. Superman, the measured register, the voice of 4 years of authority. You've been in my city for 3 hours. Blackgoku, your city has been in this condition considerably longer. Superman looks at him. Superman, you interrupted a legitimate enforcement operation. Blackgoku, I redirected a compliance exercise. A pause. The distinction is yours to examine, not mine to explain. The plaza is quiet, morning traffic audible from 2 blocks in every direction, the city doing its managed business around this specific silence at its center. Superman takes a measured step forward. Not aggressive, the step of someone reducing distance in order to have a different kind of conversation, the kind that requires proximity rather than projection. Superman, who are you? Not the command version of the question, the genuine version. Blackgoku looks at him, the full, unhurried look, the complete registration. He is reading Superman the way he read the city this morning, finding in the posture and the voice and the specific quality of the step the same evidence the city provided, the attachment still present beneath the authority, the warden who has not yet convinced himself that the cage was the right answer. Blackgoku, someone who has seen what you are trying to build. Superman and Blackgoku, and found it instructive. Superman, in what way? Blackgoku, in the way that failure is always instructive. It tells you precisely where the design broke down. The word failure lands in the plaza with the specific weight of a word chosen for its accuracy rather than its effect, not an insult, a finding. Superman's expression does not change. The slight tension at the jaw, the same 1 degree from 40,000 feet, visible now at 20 feet, communicates more than any expression could. Superman, the first edge in the measured register, barely audible, present. I brought order to a dying world. Blackgoku is quiet for a moment. He looks at the monument. He looks at Superman. He looks at the symbol on the building behind Superman, the red and blue repeated on the facade, present on every surface in sight. Blackgoku, you preserved a disease. The plaza takes the sentence. The bronze figure reaches east above them. Blackgoku, a world dying of its own contradictions, is a world that has reached the necessary threshold. The contradictions resolve or they consume. Either resolution is correct, it produces a result with integrity. He looks at Superman directly. You intervened before the resolution. You stopped the process. You kept the disease alive and put a fence around it and called the fence peace. Superman, people were dying. Blackgoku, people were living incorrectly. The correction was underway. Superman, the edge sharper now, the composure held but held with effort. 8 billion people. That's what the correction was going to consume. I stopped that. Black Goku, you stopped 8 billion people from producing the result their trajectory required. And then you kept them in suspended condition, not alive in the way that matters, not dead in the way that resolves, maintained, monitored, producing exactly nothing. He gestures, the small, precise gesture of someone, indicating the available evidence. Black Goku, the streets are very clean. Superman looks at him. 4 years of authority, 4 years of the specific, sustained will require to hold a world inside a decision you made and cannot unmake. 4 years of the weight that the monument renders in bronze as composure, and that the man underneath it experiences as the daily work of carrying something that does not get lighter. 4 years. Against this figure in black who has been in his city for 3 hours and has already found every pressure point with the accuracy of someone who spent the time reading rather than moving. Superman, the composure finding its limit, the voice dropping into the register below authority, into the register that was there before authority existed. I made the only choice that saved anyone. Black Goku, quietly, with the flat finality of a verdict, you made the choice that saved you from watching them die. The silence that follows is the silence of an accurate thing that cannot be taken back. 9:24 a.m. It is not preceded by aggression. This is the thing that will matter later, that when Black Goku transforms, he does not transform because the conversation has escalated into a physical threat, does not transform because Superman has made a move that requires the power level the transformation provides. The conversation has not escalated, no move has been made. He transforms because the conversation is complete. Because the verdict has been delivered and the verdict has been received, and the next phase is not discussion, discussion has concluded, the next phase is demonstration. The demonstration of what it looks like when something that has made different choices than Superman made, harder ones, colder ones, the ones that required removing the part of itself that would have flinched, operates at its actual capacity. The air changes first. Not temperature, the temperature of the plaza is identical a half second before and a half second after. What changes is pressure, the specific atmospheric response to the presence of energy at a scale that the atmosphere was not calibrated to contain comfortably. The air presses outward from him the way air presses outward from a source of sustained heat, not a shockwave, not an explosion, a continuous, steady, increasing pressure that reaches every surface in the plaza simultaneously and with the same force. The plaza stones produce a sound. A low tonal groan, the sound of material being asked to hold more than it was designed to hold, not yet failing, registering the ask. His hair rises. It rises slowly, not the explosive upward burst of a power transformation in its raw form, but a controlled ascent, each strand moving as if in a current rather than a detonation. Black becoming shot through with violet at the roots, violet deepening as it moves upward, the color not arriving so much as revealing itself, as if it was always present underneath, and the transformation is simply removing the surface that concealed it. The pink. Rose gold precise, the color of something that is neither warm nor cold, but operates in the register between them, the register of something that has processed both warmth and coldness, and produced from that processing a third thing that contains neither one's weaknesses. His eyes. They do not change color, they change quality. The gold deepens into something that has more dimension than gold, the depth of something that sees in more directions than the visible spectrum, that processes the information the world produces at a level below the level where processing requires effort. The aura settles around him. Not the explosive, radiating aura of power announced, the quiet, total aura of power that does not need to announce itself because it is simply present. The way the sun is simply present, not threatening, not performing, generating light and pressure, and the specific quality of warmth that has nothing to do with temperature and everything to do with proximity to something that operates at a fundamentally different scale than the things around it. He looks at Superman. The same eyes, the same expression, the same posture. Nothing has changed in him except everything. Superman does not move. This is the fact that will matter in every account of this morning, not the transformation itself, which can be categorized as a power event and processed through the regime's frameworks for power events, filed and analyzed and responded to with the appropriate force doctrine. The fact that will matter is the 4 seconds after the transformation completes, during which the most powerful enforcer of the most powerful regime in human history stands 20 feet from a transformed entity in a plaza and does not move. Does not speak. Does not reach for the authority that 4 years of absolute power has made his native register. Does nothing. 4 seconds. Blackgoku into the 4 seconds at the volume of someone completing a conversation that has been in progress since 6:14 this morning. This is what you could have been, if the decision you made had been made correctly. Superman looks at him. At the rose gold aura, at the complete stillness at the center of it, at the expression that has not changed since the intersection, that will not change, that operates so far below the level of the combat exchange that the combat exchange, when it comes, will be a footnote to the expression rather than its culmination. Superman, the measured register, returned to, held against the 4 seconds with the specific discipline of someone who has learned that composure is the only thing he has that this figure does not. You think I made the wrong choice. Blackgoku, I think you made a human choice. The pause. Blackgoku, that is the most precise criticism I can offer you. Superman's jaw set. The 1 degree. Superman, then let me show you what a human choice looks like when it's defended. He moves. 9:24 a.m., 4 seconds later. He moves at the speed he uses for threats he is not certain about, not maximum, not the full solar-powered velocity that he holds in reserve for things he has assessed and found to require it. The speed of someone who is serious without being certain, who is bringing significant force to bear while leaving room to escalate. The first strike connects. Or rather, it arrives at the coordinate where Blackgoku was. The plaza stone at that coordinate produces a crater, a clean, circular depression 2 feet deep, the compressed material at its center crystallized by the force of the impact. The impact is real. The impact is one of the 5 most powerful individual strikes Superman has thrown in 4 years of running a regime, a number that includes engagements with beings from other worlds and dimensions. Blackgoku is 3 feet to the left of the crater. He did not dodge in the way that bodies dodge, the lateral burst, the weight transfer, the muscular explosion of a system that has detected incoming force and responded to it. He relocated. The distinction is the distinction between a reaction and a decision. Reactions happen in the body, decisions happen somewhere else first. He looks at the crater. He looks at Superman. Blackgoku with the quality of someone noting something down, substantial. Superman hits him again. This one connects, genuinely connects, full impact, the specific result of a strike that found its target because the target allowed it to find it, stood in its path, received it with the complete stillness of something that has decided the incoming force is within the acceptable range. The sound the impact produces is not the sound of a body absorbing a strike. It is the sound of 2 forces meeting at equal pressure and finding that the equation does not resolve simply. A sustained, resonant tone, lower than impact sounds normally register, the sound of material properties being tested rather than overcome. Blackgoku moves back 6 inches. 6 inches. Superman looks at his own hand. Cyborg in the earpiece from the Situation Room, voice controlled, the data in his voice doing work that his words are not doing. Clark, his energy signature just increased by 40% when the strike landed. He's absorbing it, not blocking, absorbing. Superman processes this. Wonder Woman earpiece, fall back, reassess, we don't have. Superman, I'm not falling back. Wonder Woman, Clark. Superman, I made a decision for this world, I'm not. Blackgoku, without raising his voice, without the projection of combat, in the same conversational register he has used since the intersection. You're not defending your world. Superman turns to him. Blackgoku, you're defending your decision. He raises one hand. Not a combat configuration, not the position of a strike being prepared. The hand of someone making a point, extended slightly, palm open, the gesture of someone demonstrating rather than threatening. Blackgoku, there is a difference. The first is a reason, the second is a symptom. The rose gold aura pulses once, not as aggression, as emphasis. The plaza stones produce their groan again, lower this time. Above the plaza, the monitoring drone that Cyborg redirected 6 minutes ago to maintain a direct visual feed on the engagement registers an energy output that causes its systems to automatically attempt a reboot, which takes 3.4 seconds, during which the feed goes dark. In the Situation Room, Cyborg watches the 3-second black screen. When the feed returns, the plaza is intact. Superman is standing at the far edge of it, 40 feet from where he was. Blackgoku is at the monument's base. Same position as when Superman arrived. Cyborg to the data, to Wonder Woman, to the regime that has just discovered the edge of its own map. He moved him. Without, I don't even see he moved him across the plaza, and I can't find the frame where it happened. Wonder Woman looks at the feed. She looks at Superman's posture, the composure present, held, the specific held quality of someone who has received information through their body that their mind is not finished processing. She looks at the figure at the monument's base. The same stillness. The same expression. The aura settling around him with the patience of something that has always been there and has simply chosen this moment to be visible. Wonder Woman to the room, to the feed, to the morning that has produced something the regime's frameworks do not contain. We're going to need the others. Cyborg, all of them. She looks at the feed. At the rose gold light in the plaza. At Superman standing at the plaza's edge, composure held, the specific held quality of someone encountering for the first time the experience he has been the source of for 4 years. The experience of being outclassed. Not outpowered, the equation between them is not resolved yet, will not be resolved in this plaza on this morning. Outclassed. In the way that a system is outclassed by something that was built from efferent principles at the point of origin, something that did not arrive at its capability through the accumulation of external power, but through the removal of everything that interfered with the capability that was always there. Wonder Woman, all of them. In the plaza, Blackgoku looks at Superman across 40 feet of morning light. He is not waiting for the next move. He is waiting for the moment Superman understands that the moves are not the conversation. The conversation ended at 9:24. Everything after this is evidence. Blackgoku to the morning, to the monument, to the regime's entire architecture visible in every direction from this plaza. When you are ready to discuss what comes after the defense of the decision, I will be here. He turns. He walks north out of the plaza. The rose gold aura does not diminish as he walks. It simply moves with him, settled, permanent, the light of something that has made its choice and found the choice sufficient. Superman watches him go. He does not follow. Not yet. Above the plaza, the rebooted drone resumes its patrol arc. The monument reaches east. The morning continues. 9:31 a.m. He watched all of it. The full 43 minutes from 6:14 to 9:17, tracking the figure through the insurgency's patchwork network, losing the feed twice when the drone coverage had gaps, requiring it both times within 4 minutes through the human contacts who reported by memorized code phrase from positions that the regime's surveillance grid could see and had decided were not interesting enough to watch closely. He watched the vendor, the window, the old man's papers. He watched Cobalt 7 withdraw up Kirby Street with a malfunction code already prepared, the code transmitted not after the encounter, not during it, but in the same breath as the order to stand down, the cover story available before it was needed because the figure in the street had already calculated the outcome and prepared the institutional language for it. Which meant the figure understood not just how the soldiers would respond, but how the regime would process their response, and what the regime would need the response to look like to file it correctly and move past it. He watched the plaza. He watched the transformation. He watched Superman move 40 feet across the plaza, and not know when it happened. He is now in a maintenance tunnel beneath the Eastern Transit Line, 3 kilometers from Navik Plaza, seated on equipment housing with his back against the tunnel wall and his eyes closed. His eyes are closed because he is thinking, and thinking, for Bruce Wayne, has always been a physical act, something the body participates in by going still, by removing the visual input that the mind would otherwise process instead of the problem. The problem. He has been in the business of problems his entire adult life. Problems with names, the Joker, Two-Face, the Riddler, the specific human failures that put on costumes and made themselves into categories of chaos that Gotham required a counter-category to manage. Then the larger problems, the ones without names, the ones that were systems rather than individuals, the organized structures of harm that required different tools than the ones he built for people in costumes. Then Superman's decision. And the problem became everything all at once, the single largest problem he had ever held, the problem of a world run by someone with the best intentions and the worst methods, someone he had known long enough to understand completely and oppose honestly, and never, not once, find a solution for that he was fully certain was right. He has been living inside that problem for 4 years. This morning introduced a variable the problem did not previously contain. He opens his eyes. 9:33 a.m. The assessment takes 11 minutes. Not because the data is insufficient. The data from this morning is the most comprehensive data he has received about a new variable in 4 years. The figure having spent 3 hours reading the city in plain sight and providing, through the quality of its attention and the precision of its choices, a remarkably complete picture of its operational psychology. The 11 minutes are for honesty. Specifically, the work of being honest with himself about what the data shows, which is the hardest kind of analysis he does, because it is the kind that requires admitting when a thing he wants to be true is not true. He wants the variable to be an asset. He wants it to be the thing he has been waiting for, the force that exists outside the regime's framework, that cannot be absorbed or neutralized or turned by the regime's machinery, the way that everything inside the framework eventually gets turned, that has no history with Superman and therefore no leverage point Superman can apply to it, no shared memory, no residual loyalty, no attachment. He wants it to be the solution. It is not the solution. He knows this by the end of the second minute. He spends the remaining 9 minutes being thorough about it, following every line of reasoning that could lead to a different conclusion, testing each line against the morning's data, finding each line insufficient. The data is this. The figure dismissed Cobalt 711 armed soldiers without violence and without apparent effort, not as a demonstration of restraint, as a demonstration of precision. It knew exactly how much force the situation required, which was none, and applied exactly that. This is not the behavior of something that values restraint as a principle. It is the behavior of something that values efficiency as a principle, and restraint happened to be efficient in that context. The figure engaged Superman, the most powerful enforcer of the most powerful regime in human history, and moved him 40 feet across a plaza without the monitoring system being able to identify the mechanism. Not as aggression, as demonstration, to show Superman something about the power differential, to make it physical and therefore undeniable, and then to walk away from it because the demonstration W. As the point and continued combat was not. The figure has a philosophy. Batman is familiar with people who have philosophies. He has a philosophy himself, has had one since the alley, since the specific night that produced everything he subsequently became. He understands what it means to organize your entire operational existence around a set of principles that you did not choose theoretically, but arrived at through the specific, irreversible experience of loss. The figure's philosophy, assembled from the morning's evidence, is this. The world is a system. Systems have correct and incorrect configurations. The correct configuration is the one that produces the maximum integrity, not safety, not happiness, not justice in the legal or moral sense, integrity. The property of a thing that is entirely what it is, without the contradictions that produce instability, without the compromises that produce weakness, without the attachments that produce the specific, slow-motion failure that this world is currently demonstrating. Superman's regime is an incorrect configuration because it is built on a contradiction. A god who needs his subjects to survive in order to have something to rule, who has therefore not actually made the hard decision, but has made the comfortable one and renamed it as the hard one. The figure intends to correct the configuration. Not by removing Superman, removal is not correction, removal is substitution, and substitution does not address the underlying design problem. By demonstrating at the scale of a world what a correct configuration looks like. Batman sits with this for the final 3 minutes of the 11. Then he says the thing to himself that the 11 minutes were building toward, the honest conclusion that the data produces, and that he has been doing the work of arriving at rather than avoiding. Batman to the tunnel, to himself, to the honest version of the assessment. If Superman is a tyrant, this thing is extinction. The word sits in the tunnel. Not metaphorical extinction, not the political extinction of the regime or the cultural extinction of the world as it currently exists. Actual extinction, the correction of the human configuration at the level where correction means removal of the variable that is producing the incorrect result. 8 billion people as variables in a calculation being performed by something that has already done the math and found the current result unacceptable. He picks up his equipment. He begins moving toward the surface. He has a plan forming, not a plan that wins. The honest part of his thinking has already disposed of winning as an available outcome, but a plan that manages. That shapes the aftermath into something survivable. That uses the collision between two forces that will not be stopped and cannot be redirected to produce, in the wreckage of their collision, a space that the people of this world can occupy when neither force is left standing. He is not trying to win. He is trying to be standing when it ends. The first feed, 10:47 a.m. The regime's communication architecture has 17 known security layers and 2 that Batman found 18 months ago and has not used yet, saving them for the day he would need to introduce information into the system that the system would process as its own. Today was that day. The information he introduces is precise, partial, and true, all 3 properties necessary for the kind of intelligence that produces the desired operational response without being traceable to its source. False information gets discovered, and discovered information produces countermeasures. Partial true information produces the response you designed for while leaving the recipient in possession of enough confidence in their own intelligence to act on it without verification. What the regime receives, through the channel that routes to Wonder Woman's tactical display and carries her highest confidence weighting because it has never been wrong before, is this. The unclassified entity has been observed at 3 locations in the Northern District. Pattern suggests surveillance of the Population Stabilization Center on Coates Avenue, possible insurgency coordination, no confirmed contact with insurgency assets. Every word true. He watched Blackgoku pass within 2 blocks of the Population Stabilization Center during his northern walk this morning. The observation happened. The surveillance interpretation is his, not the evidence's, but it is plausible, and it is the interpretation that will produce the response he needs. The regime deploying toward the Northern District, concentrating its assets in the area that Blackgoku is most likely to return to anyway, producing the collision Batman is designing without either party knowing they are being designed toward. He sends it. He waits 4 minutes. The regime's Northern District patrol density increases by 30%. He sends the second piece. The second feed 1:03 a.m. This one is not for the regime. The insurgency's communication network is harder to use for this purpose because the insurgency does not have a single command structure with a central intake. It is distributed by design, the distribution being the primary security property that has kept it operational for 4 years. Information introduced at one node reaches the full network in approximately 40 minutes through the chain of human contacts and repurposed relay equipment. Batman introduces it at the node that reaches the network's leadership fastest. What the insurgency receives is this. Regime concentrating assets in northern sector, southern and western corridors open, use the window. Also true. Also partial. The window exists because he created it by giving the regime the Northern District information. He is now using the window he created to move the insurgency's people through it, not because the insurgency matters to his plan directly, but because the insurgency's survival is the condition for the plan's endgame. Empty cities do not produce the kind of aftermath he is designing for. Cities with people in them who remember what it was like before the regime and who have been kept intact and mobile and organized enough to rebuild, those produce the right aftermath. The insurgency is not his ally. It is his insurance policy. He sends the communication. He watches the network's movement signatures on his display, the distributed scatter of people who have been waiting for exactly this kind of window and know how to use it, the specific organized dispersal of people who have been rehearsing for this. They move. Good. Alfred earpiece from the cave, from the distance that Alfred has always maintained between himself and the operational decisions while remaining present for the consequences of them. Both feeds transmitted. The regime is moving north. The insurgency is moving south and west. A pause. You've created a corridor. Batman, I've created a stage. Alfred, for whom? Batman, for both of them. Neither one knows they're on it. Alfred and the audience. Batman looks at the transit tunnel around him, the infrastructure of a city that has been managed into compliance, the concrete and steel of a world that is about to host a collision between its manager and something that has decided the management is the problem. Batman, the audience evacuates first. 11:00 a.m. to 2:30 p.m. It happens in the spaces the regime is not looking at. This is the only way it has ever happened. The insurgency has survived 4 years not through direct confrontation, but through the specific, practiced art of existing in the negative space of the regime's attention, operating in the districts the surveillance grid covers at lowest density, moving during the windows when the patrol cycles have their longest gaps, communicating through the channels that the regime's signals intelligence has not found, because the regime's signals intelligence is designed to find the things it was told to look for, and the insurgency has always been careful about being a different kind of thing. Today, the negative space is larger than it has been in 4 years. Today, the patrol cycles have a gap in the southern and western corridors that is 40% wider than the standard gap, because 30% of the patrol density has been redeployed north. The insurgency does not know why the gap exists. It knows the gap exists because Batman's communication told it the gap existed, and in 4 years the channel that communication came through has never been wrong, and 4 years of reliability is as close to trust as the insurgency's network allows itself to get. They move. Not in the way that movements move in the stories that are written about them later, not with the dramatic compression of people making a historic choice. In the way that practical people make practical decisions under time pressure, quickly and completely, leaving behind the things that cannot be moved fast enough and taking the things that matter most, which in this case are people and the specific knowledge those people carry. Families, cell leaders, the medics who have been operating out of basements, the people with technical skills who have been keeping the insurgency's equipment functional on replacement parts sourced from the regime's own maintenance supply chain, acquired through a theft operation so minor and so consistent that the supply chain's automated loss accounting has categorized it as normal variance for 4 consecutive years. They move through the southern corridor in small groups, never more than 6, never moving on the same route twice within a 30-minute window, the dispersal pattern designed to look like the ordinary movement of a city going about its day rather than an organized evacuation. 2 blocks from the Population Stabilization Center on Coates Avenue, a woman named Sierra, whose name is in Cobalt 7's operation file, who used the 4 hours this morning to gather the things that mattered and reach the insurgency's network through a contact she has been maintaining for 8 months against exactly this possibility, steps into a southbound transit car. She does not know why Cobalt 7 didn't come. She knows it didn't. She uses the fact and does not interrogate its source, which is the specific wisdom of people who have learned to take the gifts that the situation occasionally produces without asking who left them, because the asking takes time and time is the resource she has least of. The transit car carries her south. She does not look out the window at the regime's insignia on the buildings she passes. She looks at her hands. They are not steady. She does not practice the steadiness the way the old man practices it. She is 26 and has not had 4 years to build the practice. Her hands shake and she lets them shake because the shaking is the honest response, and she is, in this specific moment, too tired to manage it into something else. The transit car moves south. The city does not know it is being evacuated. It looks like a Tuesday. 3:14 p.m. He finds the figure at the northern waterfront. Not through the surveillance network. The surveillance network has been losing the signature consistently since morning. The figure's movement through the city producing a tracking record full of gaps that the regime's analysts are currently arguing about in terms of sensor malfunction versus intentional countermeasure. Batman finds him because he has been watching the figure's pattern since 6:14, and the pattern has a logic, and the logic, followed to its next iteration, produces the northern waterfront at mid-afternoon, the elevated position, the unobstructed sight line across the full spread of the city, the specific vantage point that someone conducting the kind of comprehensive assessment the figure has been conducting all day would find useful at this stage of it. He is standing at the waterfront railing, looking at the city. Batman lands on the railing 20 feet to his left, the specific, controlled landing that announces presence without performing aggression, the posture of someone who is here for a conversation. Blackgoku does not turn. Blackgoku, you've been behind me since the transit tunnel beneath the eastern line. Batman, since the maintenance access on 4th, actually. The pause. Blackgoku, 4 blocks earlier than I registered you. He turns his head slightly, not to look at Batman, to acknowledge the correction. You're good at not being found. Batman, I've had practice. Blackgoku, in this world or others. Batman, this one, I only have the one. Blackgoku turns to look at him then, the full turn, the complete registration, the same quality of attention he has given to everything since the intersection. Reading him, finding in the cape and the cowl and the choice of landing position and the 4 blocks of undetected surveillance the same evidence he found in the city this morning. Blackgoku, you fed the regime the Northern District information. Batman is still. Blackgoku, and you moved your people through the corridor it created. He looks at the city. You're not insurgency, you're architecture. Batman, the even register, no confirmation and no denial. I want to know what you intend. Blackgoku, you already know what I intend. Batman, I know what your philosophy produces as an outcome. I want to know your timeline and your sequence. Blackgoku looks at him. Blackgoku, why? Batman, because 8 billion people live in the sequence between your starting point and your conclusion, and I would like to know how many of them are variables in your calculation. The waterfront is quiet, the specific quiet of a city whose population has learned to stay away from the elevated positions where the regime's drones make their tightest turns. Blackgoku, after a long pause, the pause of someone assessing a question rather than a threat, you are afraid. Batman, yes. Blackgoku, of me. Batman, of what comes after you. Another pause. Blackgoku looks at the city below them, the clean streets, the symbol on every surface, the managed orderly sprawl of 8 million people performing their compliance from morning to curfew. Blackgoku, the mortals. Batman, the people, yes. Blackgoku, you think I intend to remove them. Batman, I think your philosophy produces that as the logical conclusion, and I think you are not the kind of thing that stops before the logical conclusion. Blackgoku is quiet for a moment. Not the quiet of someone considering an objection, the quiet of someone finding the question interesting. Blackgoku, you are correct that I do not stop before logical conclusions. He looks at Batman, but you have misidentified the conclusion. Batman, explain it to me. Blackgoku, the disease is not the mortals. The disease is the God who decided he was. The solution to them. A pause, remove the solution and the condition returns. The mortals resume their trajectory. Batman, their trajectory was consuming them. Blackgoku, their trajectory was theirs, the outcome belonged to them, the correctness or incorrectness of it belongs to them. He turns back to the city. I have no interest in correcting mortals. Their configurations produce what they produce and the universe processes the result. I am interested in the thing that interrupted the processing. Batman looks at him. He is doing the same thing he was doing in the tunnel, the honest work of the assessment, the testing of the line of reasoning against the available evidence. The evidence supports it. He does not trust the evidence. Batman, you're telling me your target is Superman. Blackgoku, I'm telling you my target is the decision Superman made and the structure he built from it. Batman, those are the same thing. Blackgoku, they are not. The decision lives in him. The structure lives in the world. Remove him without removing the structure, and the structure finds a new occupant. Remove the structure first, and his removal becomes the conclusion rather than the beginning. Batman is very still. This is the specific stillness of someone who has just been shown a plan that is more sophisticated than the one he was working with and is processing the revision. Batman, carefully, you're not here to fight him. Blackgoku, I fought him this morning, briefly. Batman, you're here to dismantle him. Blackgoku, I'm here to complete the diagnosis. The treatment follows from the diagnosis. He looks at Batman with the gold eyes. You've been trying to dismantle the structure for 4 years, from inside it, using its own material against it. Batman, yes. Blackgoku, how is that working? The longest pause of the conversation. Batman, it isn't. Blackgoku, no. Batman looks at the city below them. He thinks about the corridor he created this morning, the gap in the northern patrol density, the insurgency moving through the southern and western routes, Sierra on the transit car with her unsteady hands. He thinks about the 4 years of this, the slow work of building a resistance inside a structure that is better at finding resistance than resistance is at hiding, the daily, grinding, insufficient labor of surviving inside a problem you cannot solve. He thinks about the 11 minutes in the tunnel. About the honest conclusion. About extinction as the alternative. He thinks about what it means to be standing when it ends. Batman, I have information the regime doesn't know I have. Access points. Structural vulnerabilities in the system's architecture, not the physical architecture, the institutional one. The places where the regime's internal logic contradicts itself and produces gaps. Blackgoku looks at him. Batman, I'm not offering an alliance. Blackgoku, I know. Batman, I'm offering a parallel operation. You pursue the diagnosis to its conclusion. I manage the structural vulnerabilities in sequence to ensure the conclusion doesn't consume what comes after. Blackgoku, you're offering to clean up behind me. Batman, I'm offering to make sure there's something to clean up for. The waterfront holds the silence between them, two figures at a railing above a city that does not know this conversation is happening, that is going about its managed Tuesday with the comprehensive obliviousness of a place that has learned to not know things as a survival strategy. Blackgoku turns back to the city. Blackgoku, the people you moved this morning. Batman's safe, southern corridor. Blackgoku, how many more can you move? Batman, given the right windows, most of the critical population, the ones who know things, the ones who remember things, the ones who will be necessary afterward. Blackgoku, how long? Batman, days, a week if the windows hold. Blackgoku, they will hold. Batman, you can guarantee that. Blackgoku, the flat certainty of a finding being entered into the record, the regime will be occupied. He turns from the railing. He walks north along the waterfront, the rose-gold aura absent now, settled back below the visible surface, present the way it is always present, not needing to be seen. Batman after him, not following, speaking to the retreating figure. You said the disease is the decision, not the man. Blackgoku stops. He does not turn. Batman, when the decision is removed, what happens to the man? A long pause. The waterfront, the city below them, the symbol on every surface. Blackgoku, that depends on what he does with the removal. He walks. Batman watches him go. He looks at the city. He looks at the symbol on the building across the waterfront, the red and blue, the stylized letter, the thing repeated everywhere, telling everyone the same sentence. He thinks about the corridor, about Sierra's hands, about the people moving south and west rough a gap he manufactured this morning, at the cost of feeding the regime information it will use against the figure currently walking north. He is feeding both sides. He is building the aftermath before the collision produces it. He is playing the most dangerous game of his life with the full knowledge that the game has no winning condition, only a survival condition, and the survival condition requires being in a specific place doing a specific thing when neither of the two forces that are about to collide is left standing. He picks up his equipment. He begins composing the third feed, this one for neither the regime nor the insurgency, for the specific network of people in 17 cities who have been waiting for the signal that the window is open, and that the time for the long preparation has ended, and the time for the thing the preparation was for has arrived. The signal is 3 words. He sends it. He moves toward the extraction point. The city performs its afternoon. The symbol watches from every surface. Somewhere to the north, a figure in black walks through the managed streets of a world that has been told it is safe, reading the lie in every clean intersection, preparing the diagnosis for its final phase. Somewhere above the cloud layer, the most powerful man in this world looks down at the city he built and feels, for only the second time in 4 years, the specific sensation of not knowing what is coming. The first time was this morning. The second time is now. The frequency is increasing. Batman files this observation in the part of his mind that tracks the variables that will determine the shape of the aftermath. He moves toward the extraction point. He does not look back at the symbol. He stopped looking at it 3 years ago. Not because he stopped seeing it. Because he decided that the energy spent on the looking was better used on the building, the quiet, daily, insufficient, necessary building of the thing that will exist when the symbol comes down. He builds. The city does not know he is building. The city does not know a great many things. That is for now exactly what Batman needs. The city always knows before the official broadcast. The announcement is just for the archives, a bureaucratic receipt the regime files to pretend they operate through legitimate measured channels, rather than the raw, blunt force trauma everyone actually lives under. The broadcast is scheduled for 6:30 a.m., but Metropolis knows by 6:03 a.m. A subjugated city learns to read the omens, like animals feeling the barometric pressure drop before a hurricane. It isn't one big siren, it's the terrifying accumulation of tiny, unnatural deviations. The patrol density doubles overnight. But it happens in the margins, a slow bleed of fresh armor injected into the grid between standard shift reports, purposely staggering the numbers so the spike doesn't trigger a panic before the regime is actually ready for a panic. The maglev trains start running exactly 2 minutes ahead of schedule. This is the tell, this is the survival math the locals have relied on for 4 months. The regime advances the transit clocks when they want the streets purged before a tactical window closes, and a closing window means something violent is about to be dropped inside it. On the 14th floor of a Kirby Street tenement, the woman wakes at 6:03 a.m. It isn't an alarm that wakes her, it's a shift in the acoustic texture of the city, more heavy engines, more synthetic tire whine, more Kevlar-laced boots hitting the pavement. She has learned to hear this frequency change the exact same way she learned to hear the subtle shifts in her sick child's breathing, automatic, unconscious. She rolls out of bed, she moves to the window, stopping exactly 2 feet from the cold glass, drowning in the shadows of her apartment, the careful, paranoid distance of a veteran survivor. The street below is gorged. Not full with the chaotic, organic flow of a city waking up, it is full with armor, The movement below is a unified predatory current. It is a weapon being drawn. She stares at the massive, glowing Superman crest bolted to the skyscraper across the street. She really looks at it for the first time in years. Looking at it doesn't feel like a reflex anymore. It feels like a final decision. She goes to shake her child awake. They leave before the broadcast. They take the unmonitored southern maintenance corridor. They are 3 blocks from the underground transit station when the public address system finally cracks open. The voice echoing down the concrete canyons is painfully measured, engineered in a sound booth to sound perfectly reassuring. But everyone on the street knows that when the regime uses the calm voice, the thing they are announcing is going to be a bloodbath. She doesn't stop to listen. She just runs. The regime's full metahuman roster hasn't been assembled in the same operational theater since the takeover. That first assembly had a very specific purpose, the violent, organized consolidation of overwhelming force that ended the Age of Heroes and established the Age of Order. That assembly was pointed outward, crushing the resistance. This assembly has a completely different quality. It is pointed inward. At a single man, a man who has been in Metropolis for less than 24 hours, a man who casually dismissed an elite enforcement unit and then philosophically dismantled the regime's entire justification for existing during a casual conversation in a public plaza. Cyborg captured the audio of that conversation. Wonder Woman has listened to it 4 times in the last 6 hours. She isn't listening to understand the argument. She is listening with the frantic, obsessive attention of someone trying to find the structural flaw in a bomb before it detonates. She hasn't found it yet. The roster is heavy. Wonder Woman, Cyborg, Solomon Grundy, hauled out of deep containment for the first time in 8 months. The decision to thaw Grundy communicates more about the regime's actual threat assessment than any briefing document ever could. Grundy isn't a precision instrument. Grundy is a blunt force threshold weapon. You only drop him when your tolerance for massive civilian casualties has just been revised sharply upward. Then Black Adam. Black Adam's inclusion is the variable that tells everyone in the room exactly how terrified Superman really is. Black Adam isn't regime. He operates under a tense treaty arrangement, a sovereign power aligned by convenience, not ideology. He is only deployed when the regime needs something completely erased without leaving an institutional paper trail. He lands in the Central Assembly courtyard at 7:44 a.m., the heavy crack of thunder preceding his arrival. He walks in with the specific, arrogant quality of a king who has his own reasons for being here and has absolutely no intention of sharing them. He stops in front of Wonder Woman. Black Adam, the low, rolling register of a sovereign addressing an equal, which Wonder Woman isn't, and they both know it, the energy signature from the plaza. Wonder WOMA. And it hasn't moved. Black Adam, Cyborg's assessment. Cyborg, his cybernetic eye whirring, focusing and refocusing on Adam's chest. Classification unknown. The power output is totally inconsistent with any documented dimensional variant, the physical transformation we logged in the plaza. Cyborg pauses. It is the jarring, unnatural hesitation of a machine mind struggling to translate impossible math into human language. Cyborg, it didn't spike, it just settled. Like the energy was always there, and the transformation just stopped requiring him to bottle it up. Black Adam looks past them, staring at the primary display, at the blazing, rose-gold signature captured from the plaza footage. Black Adam speaking quietly, to himself, the specific, heavy recognition of a god who has spent millennia being the most powerful thing in the room and is suddenly recalibrating that assumption. It isn't a power level, it's a state. Wonder Woman, what is the difference? Black Adam power levels can be exceeded, states have to be dismantled. He turns away from the glowing screen. They are entirely different problems. Wonder Woman, to the room, to the heavy hitters preparing for war. Then we start with the excess, and we beat him down until we hit the foundation. She looks at Superman. Superman has been standing in the deep shadows at the back of the room for the entire briefing. He hasn't spoken a single word. He has just been staring at the plaza footage, specifically the 4 seconds immediately following Blackgoku's transformation. The 4 seconds where Superman himself did not move. He has watched his own paralysis 11 times since yesterday, not to find something he missed. He didn't miss anything. He is watching it because his brain is violently rejecting the memory of his own hesitation, and acceptance is taking longer than 11 viewings. Superman, his voice perfectly measured, cold, polished. Coordinate through cyborg, staged approach. Do not commit the full roster until we have reliable engagement data. We don't know enough about how he responds to sustained, heavy pressure. A pause, the air in the room drops a few degrees. Superman civilian evacuation status. Cyborg northern and central districts are at 80%, southern and western are. Cyborg checks his feeds. The check takes too long. There is a glaring, ragged gap in the data from the southern corridors that he has been staring at since dawn. Cyborg mobility patterns are highly irregular. It could be natural panic dispersal, or it could be Superman, clear the city. His voice doesn't change register. It doesn't need to. Superman, all of it. I don't care what is clogging those corridors. Complete the clearance. Cyborg Clark, the mathematical timeline for a full clearance is Superman, complete it. The instruction hangs in the air, heavy and absolute. The room silently processes what it means to clear millions of people who have nowhere left to run. Wonder Woman to the roster, to the morning that is rapidly assembling itself into a slaughter. Move. They hit him at the waterfront. This is not the location the regime chose. The regime's tactical plan designated the open ground of the industrial district on the eastern edge as the engagement theater, the space with the lowest population density and the widest operational clearance. The regime's tactical plan was designed for an entity that would be where the regime expected it to be. Blackgoku is at the waterfront because the waterfront has the best sight line to the full spread of the city, and he has been watching the deployment assemble since 7:44 with the patient attention of someone who has been waiting for exactly this, and is noting the composition with the interest of a researcher whose hypothesis is being tested at larger scale than yesterday's plaza. Solomon Grundy arrives first. This is the tactical choice that tells him something. Grundy first means the regime is opening with expendable force, with the instrument that generates data about the target's response without committing the precise instruments to the initial engagement. He is being assessed. The regime is using Grundy the way Batman used his drones, as a sensor. He finds this appropriate. Grundy hits him at the full weight and velocity of something that has torn apart armored vehicles with its hands and walked through sustained artillery fire without adjusting its pace. Blackgoku moves with it. Not away from it, with it, converting the incoming momentum into a directional vector, stepping inside Grundy's reach as the impact arrives, and using the collision's energy as the mechanism of the redirect. The resulting force sending Grundy's mass in the direction that Grundy's own momentum was already going, extended and amplified, into the waterfront's retaining wall at the speed of something that was always going to hit that wall, and has just been helped to its destination. The wall produces the sound of concrete meeting its structural limit. Grundy is through it. The river receives him. Blackgoku watches the surface where Grundy entered it. He looks at the displaced energy reading in his own system, the calculation of what the impact contained and what he absorbed from it, and what the absorption means for his current state. He finds the number interesting. Blackgoku to the absorbed data, to the river, to the morning, first. Escalation the next 40 minutes. What the 40 minutes produce in sequence. Cyborg deploys the sonic disruption array, the weapon developed specifically for targets that absorb kinetic force, that operates through the nervous system rather than through structural impact. It is effective against every metahuman in the regime's roster except Kryptonians, who are affected differently, and the 2 documented cases of beings with nervous systems operating on non-standard biological frameworks. The array deploys. Blackgoku tilts his head at the frequency. He adjusts. Not in the way of someone managing pain or disruption, in the way of someone tuning an instrument, finding the specific internal calibration that converts the disruptive frequency into something the system can process and use. The adjustment takes 4 seconds. Then he moves through the array's field the way he moves through everything, with the unhurried directional certainty of something that has identified the next point and is closing the distance. Cyborg pulls the array. He looks at the data. Cyborg to himself, to the numbers, to the specific thing the numbers are showing him that he did not expect to see. It adapted, in real time. The frequency that would have been effective 3 minutes ago he's already past it. He routes the data to Superman. Superman reads it at 40,000 feet. He reads it with the same stillness he brought to the plaza footage, the 11 viewings, the acceptance work. The data says the same thing the plaza said. The difference between this morning and yesterday is that yesterday he had the option of not moving. Today the option is not available. He descends. Wonder Woman engages from the north simultaneously. The coordinated approach, the tactical compression of the target's response space, the specific geometry of a two-axis engagement designed to prevent the target from finding the clean retreat vector that single-axis attacks allow. Blackgoku stands at the waterfront with two vectors of attack converging on his position. He does not retreat. He distributes his attention across both vectors with the complete, simultaneous focus of something that does not experience the splitting of attention as a resource constraint, finds both vectors in his field, and moves not away from either, toward the intersection of both, the specific point between the two incoming lines where the convergence is tightest, where the angles are worst, where the tactical doctrine says you do not go. He goes there because that is where the most information is. Wonder Woman's lasso finds him at the intersection. Superman's strike arrives 0.3 seconds later. The intersection of those two forces, lasso and direct strike, the rotational disruption of one combined with the linear impact of the other, produces an outcome that the tactical doctrine, if it had a category for this target, would call maximum effective damage. He goes down. Not with the drama of a defeated thing, with the controlled, deliberate quality of something that has decided to go down, that has done the math on what going down will produce and found the production valuable enough to allow the going down. The waterfront pavement receives him. There is a crater. 4 feet deep, plain edges, the specific geometry of concentrated force applied at a single point. He is at the center of it. Still, Wonder Woman looks at Superman. Superman looks at the crater. Wonder Woman, Cyborg, energy signature. Cyborg COMMS, the pause before the answer, the pause of instruments producing a result that requires a second reading. The signature is climbing. He's not down, he's building. The crater produces a sound. Low tonal, the sound of the plaza stones when the aura settled, the sound of a space being asked to contain more than it was designed for. The rose gold light fills the crater from below. He stands, rising 9:41 a.m. He stands the way the transformation settled yesterday, not with the explosive emergence of something fighting its way back to its feet, but with the deliberate, unhurried quality of a person rising because they have decided it is time to rise. He looks at the crater around him. He looks at his hands. He finds in them the result of the calculation he did before he went down, the absorbed energy from Wonder Woman's rotational force, the absorbed energy from Superman's direct strike, the specific combination of two distinct force types arriving simultaneously, and what the Ustum has done with that combination in the seconds between impact and now. The number is higher than before. Considerably higher. Blackgoku to the number, to the crater, to the morning that is teaching him something he came here to learn. There it is. He looks at Wonder Woman. He looks at Superman. He looks at Superman for longer. At the composed expression held, the specific held quality, but different now from the plaza, different in the way that held things are different after they have been held past their comfortable duration. The composure is still present. The effort required to maintain it has increased. Blackgoku steps out of the crater. The rose gold aura is not the aura from yesterday's transformation. It is larger. Not in the theatrical sense of a power display, larger in the way that a fire is larger after it has been given more fuel, larger in the proportional, physics-consistent way of an output that reflects its input accurately. The air pressure changes. Superman, the composure, the measured register, the voice holding. You allowed that. Blackgoku, yes. Superman, why? Blackgoku looks at him with the gold eyes. Blackgoku, because I needed to know what your best feels like. The pause. Blackgoku, now I know. Superman's jaw set. Not the 1 degree, more than 1 degree. The composure finding the edge of its structural integrity. Blackgoku, not unkindly, with the specific delivery of a finding that is accurate rather than cruel. Now you're learning, suffering refines gods. He looks at the city behind Superman, the skyline, the symbol on every surface, the regime's architecture visible in every direction from this waterfront. Blackgoku, you built a world to avoid suffering, a world where the variables are managed and the outcomes are controlled and the messy process of existence is supervised into something clean and scheduled and safe. He looks at Superman, and you are less than you were 4 years ago, before the decision, before the order. Superman does not answer. Blackgoku, because suffering is not the enemy of gods, suffering is the process. It is how the capacity expands. It is how the ceiling is found and exceeded. He opens his hand, the small gesture from the plaza, the demonstrative gesture of someone making a point through evidence. You removed it from your world. You removed it from yourself. You stopped growing the day you decided growth was no longer necessary because you had achieved control. He closes the hand. Blackgoku, I have been growing since I arrived in this city. Black Adam, 10:14 a.m. He comes from the north without announcement. This is Black Adam's specific quality among the regime's assets, where the others arrive with the institutional signature of the regime's deployment, with the coordination and the coverage and the specific quality of organized institutional force. He arrives as himself, which is a thing that has been a force in the world since before most of the institutions that currently manage it were founded. He does not hit immediately. He lands 30 feet from Blackgoku in the cleared waterfront space and looks at him with the specific, lateral assessment of one ancient thing evaluating another. Not peer recognition, he does not know yet if the recognition is warranted, something more careful than that. The assessment of someone who has encountered things that looked different from what they were and has learned to take the time. Black Adam, the register of sovereign to sovereign, bypassing every institutional framework in between. You are not from here. Blackgoku, no. Black Adam, you are not from anywhere adjacent to here. Blackgoku, no. Black Adam looks at the crater, at the aura, at the specific quality of the energy signature that Cyborg's instruments have been failing to classify since yesterday. Black Adam, you have been here before, not this world, this type of world. Blackgoku, many times. Black Adam and what happens to them. The question lands in the cleared space between them with the weight of a genuine inquiry, not tactical, not a feint toward the engagement. The question of someone who has watched enough worlds change to understand that the person in front of him has a track record, and the track record is the most relevant available data. Blackgoku, they produce their result. Black Adam, their result. Blackgoku, the result their configuration was always moving toward. Some survive it, some don't. He looks at Black Adam. The ones that survive are the ones that stopped being managed before the correction arrived. Black Adam is quiet for a moment. He looks at the city behind Blackgoku. He has complicated feelings about this city, feelings he does not examine often because examining them produces conclusions about his treaty arrangement with the regime that he is not prepared to act on yet. He has been not prepared for 14 months. He looks at the rose gold aura. Looks at Blackgoku. Black Adam, the decision visible in his posture before the action, the specific quality of a sovereign making a choice. Then let's see what you are before I decide what side of this I'm on. Hey, moves. What follows is the only exchange in the day's combat that registers as genuinely bilateral, not because Black Adam's power matches the current state of Blackgoku's, but because Black Adam fights with the specific, developed intelligence of someone who has been fighting things stronger than himself for 5,000 years. and has built from that experience a methodology that is not about matching force, but about finding the asymmetry in any opponent's application of it. He finds asymmetries. Every exchange, he finds one, a vector angle that the rose-gold aura covers less completely, a transition between offense and positioning that contains a half-second of reorganization, the specific footwork pattern that Blackgoku uses when he is absorbing rather than redirecting, and the different pattern he uses when he is redirecting. He catalogs them. He does not exploit them immediately. He catalogs them, files them, the intelligence work of a combatant who understands that information gathered now is worth more than damage dealt now. Blackgoku notices. He notices the cataloging the way he notices everything, with the complete, unhurried attention of something that is reading the opponent as the opponent reads it. He finds in Black Adam's methodology the same quality he found in Rama's salat on the 8th floor of a building in Jakarta, not power, intelligence. The development of a system over a very long time by someone who was serious about the work. He lets the exchange continue longer than he needs to. Not to absorb energy, the exchange with Superman and Wonder Woman already produced what he needed on that dimension, to read the full system, to find the outer edge of what 5,000 years of combat intelligence produces when it is applied against something it has never faced. He finds the outer edge at the 4-minute mark. He steps past it. Black Adam hits the water. He surfaces immediately, the specific resurgence of something that has been hit before and knows how to process being hit, that does not waste the first seconds after impact on assessment it can do in transit. He surfaces. He looks at Blackgoku on the waterfront. He does not attempt a second engagement. Black Adam to the water, to the assessment, to the conclusion that 5,000 years of experience has produced in 4 minutes. I see. He looks at Superman. Black Adam, this is not a military problem. Superman, the composure, the edge, everything is a military problem if you apply sufficient force. Black Adam, that is what someone says when the military problem has already been lost. He looks at Blackgoku. That thing is not fighting you, it is teaching you something, and it has decided the teaching requires you to experience it physically. He rises from the water. Black Adam to Superman, to the deployment, to the regime's assembled force. You want to win this, I understand wanting to win, but winning is not available. He looks at the city. The question worth asking is what you want to survive. He flies north. The regime's deployment watches him go. Superman watches him go. Blackgoku watches him go. He finds in Black Adam's exit the same thing he found in Batman's waterfront conversation and in Rama's partial lowering of the weapon on the 8th floor of Tama's building, the specific intelligence of someone who reads the situation accurately, who does not let the pride of wanting to win prevent them from seeing what is actually in front of them. He files this. 11:33 a.m. The skyline changes. This is when the combat reaches the scale that cities register in their material, when the force exchanges stop being contained at ground level and start moving vertically into the architecture, into the glass and steel and concrete that cities use to make the statement that the things built here are intended to last. The statement is being revised. Superman hits him at full solar capacity. Not the measured force of the morning's engagement, the full, total, undivided application of everything 4 years of disciplined solar absorption has stored. The kind of force that he has used twice in 4 years, once during the consolidation, once against a dimensional incursion 18 months ago that the public record does not contain. The heat vision arrives first. At the wavelength and intensity that structural steel begins to consider its options, sustained, continuous, tracked, not the burst application that produces a single catastrophic result, but the sustained application that changes the thermal state of everything in its path progressively and completely. The beam tears through the cloud cover above the waterfront and continues, finding him across the distance, and he moves with it, not dodging directing, allowing the beam to track him, and using the tracking to move himself toward the position he wants to be in when the next phase arrives. He moves through the beam. The temperature around him is not a factor he registers in the way that temperature is a factor for bodies built around biological thermal regulation. He registers it as an energy variable, incoming, directional, convertible. He converts. The Chi construct he produces from the conversion is not the defensive configuration, not the barrier or the redirect. It is a blade. Flat, precise, the length of it extending from his hand with the specific, considered geometry of someone who has thought about what shape the situation requires and produced that shape from available material. It enters the building facade at the corner of Sigil and 8th at the angle that separates the structural supports on floors 12 through 19 from the load-bearing relationship they maintain with floors 20 through 26. The building does not collapse dramatically. It settles the specific architectural settling of a structure that has lost the relationship between its components that gave it its integrity, finding a new and lower equilibrium with the ground-level forces still intact and the upper floors having reached a different arrangement with gravity than the architects intended. The debris field is north-facing, away from the evacuation corridors, away from the population centers still occupied. This too is a choice. Superman watches the building settle. He watches the precision of it, the specific, calculated direction of the debris, the angle of the blade, the selection of that building from every building visible from this position. Superman, the composure finding its structural limit, the voice entering the register below authority, that building had people in it. Blackgoku, that building had your insignia on it, every surface. Superman, people lived there. Blackgoku, people existed there, under your management, in the configuration you built for them. The gold eyes, direct, complete. You keep using the word people as if it is an argument, it is a description. Something breaks. Not the composure, something below the composure, the load-bearing structure beneath it, the thing the composure was built to protect. Superman, the voice that was there before the decision, before the order, before the 4 years, the voice that belongs to the person who grew up in Smallville and learned what hope meant from people who believed in it. I did this for them. Blackgoku, quietly, I know. Superman, everything I built. Blackgoku, I know. Superman, every choice I made was to protect. Blackgoku, Clark. The name lands in the space between them. Not the title, not the symbol. Not Superman in the register of the regime and the monument and the briefing rooms and the 40,000 feet. Clark. Superman stops. He looks at Blackgoku. Blackgoku, the verdict delivered without pleasure, without cruelty, with the flat, complete accuracy of the finding that the entire morning has been building toward. I know you did it for them. That is the tragedy. A pause. Not that you were wrong, not that you were cruel, that you were sincere, and the sincerity produced this. He gestures. The city, the symbol, the settled building, the clean streets, the 40 million people performing their compliance from morning to curfew. Blackgoku, good intentions are the most dangerous material in the universe. They make the builder certain. Certainty removes the correction mechanism. Without correction, the design drifts, the drift compounds, and the builder cannot see the drift because the builder is inside the sincerity. Superman looks at the city. The city he built. The thing he made from the worst night of his life, from the specific, irreversible moment that produced the decision that produced everything after it. The regime, the monument, the curfew, the clean streets, the old man's papers held at chest height before they are asked for. He looks at it. He sees it. For the first time in 4 years, he sees it from the outside, not from the inside, where it looks like the thing he built it to be, but from the outside, where it looks like what it is. His jaw does not set. The 1 degree does not happen. His face does something more complicated than composure and less resolved than breaking, the specific expression of someone encountering a truth they already knew and have been doing the work of not knowing for a very long time. Superman, barely audible to the city, to the truth it is currently presenting him with, what do I do with that? Blackgoku, that is the first honest question you have asked today. He looks at Superman. The full, unhurried, complete attention. Blackgoku, I don't know the answer. That is the honest response to an honest question. What you do with the recognition of a wrong design is not a problem I have solved. My solution was different from yours and produced different failures. The pause. Blackgoku, but the question is the beginning of something, which is further than you were this morning. 12:47 p.m. The regime's assets are deployed across 7 engagement points across the city. All 7 are experiencing the same result in different configurations. Not defeat, the word defeat implies an engagement that was competitive at some point, a balance that tipped. What the 7 engagement points are experiencing is instruction. The patient, exhaustive, kinetically expensive instruction of a force that is using each engagement to develop the specific data point that engagement can provide, and is willing to absorb whatever the engagement costs in order to get the data point cleanly. The skyline is recording the instruction. 4 buildings have entered new relationships with gravity. 2 transit infrastructure sections are assessing their continued viability. The heat vision exchange above the waterfront produced a cloud disruption visible from 40 kilometers that the atmospheric modeling system is logging as a severe weather event because it does not have a better category. The city looks different from 40,000 feet than it did yesterday. Batman is not at 40,000 feet. He is at street level in the southern district, moving through the evacuation corridors with the specific, economical motion of someone who has one task and is executing it with the full allocation of their remaining resources. The corridors are clear. Almost all of them. He has been feeding the third-tier network the sequence of signals since 947, the signals that the 17-city network has been waiting for, that released the specific coordinated series of actions that Batman planned in the interval between deciding that winning was not available and deciding what survival required instead. He moves. Around him, the city empties in the specific way of a thing that does not know it is emptying, not the dramatic, acknowledged evacuation of a population that has been told to leave, but the quiet, distributed, individually rational movement of people who are responding to signals and windows, and the accumulated sense that today is the day to be somewhere else. He reaches the final position. He takes it. He looks north toward the waterfront, where the rose-gold light is still visible against the afternoon sky, not as a display, not as a performance, as a simple fact of what is present there, and what the presence of it means for the light quality of everything within a 3-kilometer radius. He looks at it. Batman to the earpiece, to Alfred, to the plan's current phase, corridor status. Alfred southern clear, western 93%, northern is Bruce, the northern corridor has a complication. Batman, what kind? Alfred, the regime redirected 2 units into the northern approach 20 minutes ago. The remaining population in the corridor is they're not moving, they're watching. Batman, watching what? Alfred, the waterfront, what's happening at the waterfront? A pause. They've been watching for 40 minutes. They are not evacuating. Batman looks at the rose-gold light in the northern sky. He thinks about the woman in the window on Kirby Street, standing 2 feet back from the glass in the shadow of the room. He thinks about the old man's hands. He thinks about the child's drawing with the proportions that told the truth. Batman, they're not afraid. Alfred, no. Batman, they're watching someone fight their god. Alfred, yes. Batman looks at the northern corridor. He looks at the light. He looks at the symbol on the building beside his position, the red and blue, the stylized letter, the thing repeated everywhere. He thinks about Blackgoku on the waterfront, absorbing Superman's best and standing from it and saying, "Now you're learning." He thinks about what that looks like from the street level of a city that has been living inside the managed order for 4 years, that has been performing its compliance from curfew to curfew, that has been holding its hands steady through the daily discipline of people who cannot afford to shake. He thinks about what it means to those people to watch something absorb the god's best and stand. Batman to Alfred, to himself, to the plan's honest accounting, leave them. Alfred, Bruce. Batman, leave them, they're not in danger, he's not targeting the population. He looks at the light, let them watch. Alfred, that's a significant assumption about his intentions. Batman, it's what the data supports. Alfred, and if the data is wrong. Batman, the honest version, the version from the 11 minutes in the tunnel. Then the assumption is wrong and the morning costs more than it should. He moves to the final position. He does not look at the symbol again. He looks north. He watches the light. He watches the people watching the light. He watches the city that has been managed for 4 years into the absence of hope discovering, on a Tuesday morning at the waterfront, something that absorbs the gods' best and stands from it. He watches what that does to them. He watches the hands. They are not steady. They are shaking not from fear, from the specific, unfamiliar physiological response of people who have been not feeling something for a very long time and have just encountered the stimulus that the not feeling was built to contain. The hands shake. They shake the way hands shake when something returns that left a long time ago. Something that has no name in the regime's language, because the regime's language was built around its absence. Batman files this. He files it in the part of his mind that tracks the variables that will determine the shape of the aftermath. The aftermath he has been building toward since the tunnel. The aftermath that the morning is now producing faster than his timeline anticipated. He files it. He looks at the light. He waits. 1:14 p.m. He stops. Not because he is finished, the engagement has not reached the point where finished is the accurate description, the point where all available force has been applied and all available response has been exhausted and the situation has arrived at its natural terminus. The engagement has not reached that point. Superman is still standing. The regime's remaining assets are still deployed across the 7 engagement points. The material of the war is still present and active and generating data. He stops because he has what he came for. The data is complete. He has absorbed Black Adam's 5,000 years of combat intelligence. He has absorbed the full output of Cyborg's sonic array, of Wonder Woman's rotational force combined with Superman's direct strike, of the heat vision at sustained maximum, of the full solar-powered capacity of the most powerful Kryptonian currently operating on this Earth. He has absorbed all of it. He has grown from all of it. And the growing has produced, in the past 40 minutes, the specific result that the hypothesis predicted, but that he needed the engagement to confirm. The ceiling of what this world can produce in opposition is lower than the floor of what he can currently sustain. Not marginally. Not in the way of a close calculation that could shift with different variables or better tactics or a force combination the regime has not yet attempted. The gap is architectural. He stands in the waterfront space, the cleared ground of the morning's engagement, the craters and the debris and the settled building 3 blocks north, and he looks at Superman across the space between them. Superman is standing. This is significant after what the morning contained, after the accumulated output of every instrument of force the regime possesses, deployed in the optimal sequence with optimal coordination. He is standing. Not undamaged, not at the beginning of his resources, standing. The specific, disciplined, willful standing of someone who has been refusing to go down, because going down means the thing they built goes down with them, and that is not acceptable. That remains not acceptable regardless of the cost of the refusal. Blackgoku looks at him standing. He looks at the composure that has been held for 4 years and held for this morning, and is still, technically, present, held now with the effort visible in it, the way the effort in a structure becomes visible when the structure is being asked to hold more than its design allows. He finds, in the standing and the held composure and the specific quality of the effort, the confirmation of the last thing he needed to confirm. Superman was never going to break under external force. The ideology does not fail because something hits it hard enough. Ideologies fail from the inside, from the moment when the person carrying the ideology encounters the internal contradiction they have been managing since the beginning and finds the management no longer available. From the moment when the evidence the ideology requires them to not see becomes too large to not see, with the energy they have remaining. He produced that moment with words on the waterfront at 11:33, when he said the word Clark in the register that bypassed the regime and the monument and reached the person underneath them. The physical combat was secondary. It was always secondary. He stops. He looks at Superman. Blackgoku, not loudly, with the flat, complete tone of a finding being delivered for the last time to the person it concerns. You were never meant to rule. Superman looks at him. Blackgoku, you were meant to reveal. Superman, the edge in the voice, the last structural resistance. Reveal what? Blackgoku, the flaw, the specific, precise, irreducible flaw in the design of a species that produces beings like you. He looks at the city behind Superman. Beings with the capacity for everything, the power, the reach, the potential to reshape the conditions of existence, who cannot resist the application of that capacity to the management of the things they love. A pause. You are not the exception to the human story. You are its most complete expression. The most human thing this species has ever produced is you, a being with a god's power who used it to do exactly what humans have always done with power. He looks at Superman. Build a cage and call it safety. The waterfront is quiet. The 7 engagement points across the city are quiet. The regime's assets, distributed and deployed and generating data since morning, have arrived at the same stillness, not by command, but by the specific, simultaneous recognition that the thing they have been engaging has stopped engaging, that the combat has ended, that the ending is not the kind of ending that combat training has categories for. Superman, barely audible. Then what comes now? Blackgoku looks at him. The gold eyes. The complete attention. The expression that has not changed since the intersection at 6:14 and will not change now. The expression below the emotional responses that expression is typically used to communicate. The expression of something that has completed its reading of a situation and is moving to the next phase. Blackgoku, now I stop testing the disease. He rises. 1:19 p.m. The sky changes. This is the first thing that every person in every part of the city registers, not the energy output, not the sound, not any of the specific physical properties that the transformation produces at the level of measurable phenomena. The sky changes. The specific quality of the afternoon light alters in the way that light alters before a weather event of significant scale, the color shifting by a fraction of a degree toward the wavelength that no meteorological event produces, but that the human nervous system registers anyway, in the part that is older than language, in the part that has always known what it means when the light does this. It means something is happening at a scale the light itself is responding to. He rises from the waterfront with the deliberate, unhurried quality of everything he has done since arrival, the quality of something that has decided on an action and is executing it without the performance that decided actions sometimes attract. He rises the way the tide rises, not toward anything, not in opposition to anything, simply upward because upward is the direction the next phase requires. The rose-gold aura expands. This is not the expansion of the transformation. The transformation already happened, yesterday in the plaza, settled into permanence by the morning's engagement. This is something beyond the transformation, something the transformation was the preparation for, the way a foundation is the preparation for the structure that the foundation makes possible. The aura does not radiate outward from him in the pulsing, explosive manner of a power display designed for effect. It expands with the even, continuous quality of something filling a space that was always its correct dimensions, the way water fills a vessel, finding the walls and holding them, occupying every part of the available volume completely and without urgency. At 300 feet, the expansion reaches the atmospheric layer where the regime's drone network operates. The drones stop, not because he directed force at them, because the field they are now operating inside has changed in a way that their sensors cannot calibrate to. The electromagnetic properties of the atmosphere within the expansion radius are different in the specific way of a space that has had something introduced into it that the sensors were not designed to detect and cannot therefore relate to their operational parameters. They stop because they no longer know where they are. At 1,000 feet, the expansion is visible from the ground as a change in the sky's color across the full northern quadrant, a deepening, a shift toward the specific quality of light that the wavelength produces at this scale, a light that has no natural equivalent, and that every person who sees it registers with the part of the nervous system that is older than language. The part that knows. Cyborg from the Situation Room to no one who can do anything with the information, the voice of instruments producing readings that exceed their display ranges. The energy output is, I don't have a unit for this. The scale doesn't, there isn't a framework that contains this number. He looks at his screens. Cyborg, he's not fighting anymore. Wonder Woman looks at the northern sky through the Situation Room window. At the light. Wonder Woman, very quietly, the register of someone who has been in the presence of gods for a long time and is recognizing, for the first time, the difference between gods and whatever this is. No. Cyborg, then what is he doing? She looks at the light. She looks at it for a long time. Wonder Woman, he's deciding. 1:23 p.m. From the ground, it looks like weather. From 10,000 feet, it looks like the sky has acquired a new layer, a layer that was not present this morning and is present now, occupying the space between the cloud cover and the upper atmosphere with the settled permanence of something that has decided to be there. From 40,000 feet, it looks like something else. Superman is at 40,000 feet. He rose when Blackgoku rose, not to engage. That moment has passed. He knows the moment has passed. The thing that broke at 11:33 and has not been repaired has reorganized his understanding of what this morning is, and what the afternoon will be, and what the choice available to him actually is, which is not the choice he has been operating from since the decision, which was, control this, maintain this, protect this. The choice available to him now is simpler. He is at 40,000 feet, looking at the expansion, looking at what deciding looks like. From this altitude, which is, a man floating at the center of a field of rose gold energy that extends for 30 kilometers in every direction and is still expanding, with the slow, continuous quality of a tide that has not yet found its limit. He looks at it. He looks at the city below it, his city, the city he built from the worst night of his life and has been maintaining from 40,000 feet every morning for 4 years. He looks at the people in it. The specific moving signatures of 8 million people going about the afternoon of a day that has produced, in its first 8 hours, more structural change to the world he built than the previous 4 years combined, going about it the way people go about things when they do not yet fully understand what the thing is that they are inside. He looks at them, at the signatures, at the 8 million individual points of thermal and bioelectric data that his sensors render as a continuous field of organized human activity, each point a person, each person inside the structure he built, and the ideology he built it from, and the specific design flaw that the morning confirmed was always present in the design. He built the cage to protect the people. The people are inside the cage. The thing above the cage is deciding. Superman to himself, to the altitude, to the honest accounting that the morning produced. I prepared this. Not a question. The specific, precise, declarative quality of a statement that has been reached through evidence rather than feeling, the same quality that Blackgoku's findings carry, the same quality that the data from the morning has been assembling toward since 614. He looks at the expansion. He looks at the city. Superman, I prepared them. The field below him holds 40,000 feet of space between his position and the people his sensors are tracking, and inside that space is the full architecture of everything he decided and built and maintained, the regime, the symbol, the curfew, the clean streets, the checkpoints, the population registry, the behavioral analysis network, the Cobalt 7 operation file with 4 names in it. All of it, between him and the 8 million people. Superman for this. 1:31 p.m. There is no announcement. There is no targeting system, no operational sequence, no deployment of force toward designated objectives with designated outcomes. There is no combat doctrine being executed, no tactical plan being implemented, no war being conducted. There is only the field. And the field's expansion reaching, at 1:31 p.m., the altitude at which its properties interact with the population density below it in the way that Blackgoku's calculation indicated they would. The first district is the northern one. The regime's administrative center, the Hall of Justice, the command infrastructure, the specific architecture of the regime's institutional presence, not the buildings, the function the buildings represent, the organized structure of managed human existence that the buildings house. It does not burn. It does not explode. It ceases with the specific clean finality of a variable being removed from an equation, present in the previous state of the equation, absent in the next state, the transition between those states occurring in the interval between one moment and the next without the drama that the scale should require. The field moves. It moves south. Cyborg loses 4 of his systems simultaneously, not to attack, to the field reaching the altitude at which his integrated architecture, which is partly biological and partly electronic, and therefore partly susceptible to biological disruption and partly susceptible to the field's electromagnetic properties, can no longer maintain the integration. He experiences for 2.3 seconds the specific condition of being 2 things simultaneously and neither thing completely. Then he experiences the condition of being 1 thing. He sits in the silence of the situation room with the 4 dead screens and the remaining 3 active ones, and he looks at the field spreading across the northern district on the operational map, and he does the thing his architecture has always done with data it cannot process into a response. He records it. Cyborg to the recording, to the 3 remaining screens, to the operational map, northern district, regime infrastructure, gone, a pause, not destroyed, gone, another pause, there's a difference, destroyed leaves material, gone is it's like it was never. He stops. He looks at the map. He looks at the field. Cyborg, he's not taking the people. The map shows it clearly, the field passing through the administrative district, the regime's institutional infrastructure ceasing, and the biosignatures continuing. Present, intact. The people in the northern district are standing in the spaces where the regime's physical infrastructure was, the checkpoint stations and the monitoring equipment and the surveillance. Architecture and the 22 years of organized dominance rendered in steel and concrete, and all of it is gone, and the people are standing in the spaces where it was. Standing. The field moves south. Cyborg to Wonder Woman to Superman through the remaining comms frequency to whoever is still receiving. He's not cleansing the population, he's cleansing the structure. 1:47 p.m. The symbol comes down everywhere simultaneously. Not through targeted destruction, the field does not operate through targeting. It operates through the specific property of the expansion that distinguishes between the things it is removing and the things it is not removing, a distinction that Cyborg's instruments cannot find a physical basis for because the basis is not physical. The basis is the design flaw. Everything built from the design flaw, the regime's architecture, the surveillance grid, the compliance infrastructure, the specific organized apparatus of a god managing the existence of beings he cannot stop caring about, is removed by the field with the efficiency of something that has identified the specific component of a system that is producing the incorrect result and has removed that component. Not the people. The management of the people. Not the city. The city's administration by a god who used the city to avoid the truth that the morning confirmed. The symbol comes down. From every surface, every building face, every checkpoint barrier, every transit placard, every public address terminal. The stylized letter in red and blue, present on every vertical surface in Metropolis for 4 years, absent in the next state of the city with the completeness of something that was never meant to be permanent and has simply been informed of this fact. The building where the child's drawing is taped to the glass on the 2nd floor. The drawing remains. The tape at its yellowed corners holds. The sun the child drew is still very large. The figure beneath it is still very small. The proportions still tell the truth. The field passes the building. The building stands. 1:53 p.m. He watches from 40,000 feet. He watches the symbol come down everywhere simultaneously, and he watches the people in the spaces where the infrastructure was, and he watches the field move south through the city he built with the slow, continuous, tidal quality of something that has found its correct dimensions and is occupying them completely. He watches it. He watches it with the full capacity of his vision, the X-ray and the thermal and the microscopic and the telescopic, every available sense directed at the city below him, at the 8 million biosignatures moving through the afternoon of a day that is dismantling the world they have been living inside. The signatures are not running. This is what he cannot stop looking at, not the field, not the infrastructure ceasing, not the symbol coming down, the people. The 8 million people who are not running, who are standing in the spaces where the checkpoints were and looking at the spaces where the checkpoints were and then looking at each other and then doing the specific, uncertain, incremental thing that people do when a constraint they have organized their behavior around for a very long time is suddenly absent. They are testing the absence, moving in directions they have not moved in 4 years, speaking at volumes they have not used in 4 years. Occupying the centers of streets that the checkpoints have been routing them around the edges of since the regime installed them. They are not celebrating. They are not liberated in the dramatic, acknowledged way of people who have been told their liberation has arrived and can organize their response to it. They are confused, tentatively, carefully, with the specific, watchful confusion of people who have been conditioned to interpret absence of constraint as a test of compliance rather than a genuine change in conditions. He watches the confusion. He watches it resolve person by person, block by block, as the resolution of one person reaches the person beside them, and that person's resolution reaches the person beside them, the specific social propagation of a fact that starts as individual and becomes collective. The fact is, the management is gone. He watches it become collective. He watches what it looks like on 8 million faces when that fact becomes collective. He watches it for a long time. Then he closes his eyes. Superman to the altitude, to himself, to the honest version of everything the morning produced. I didn't save them. The city below him performs the first minutes of its unmanaged existence. Superman, I was so certain. I was so certain the alternative was worse. He opens his eyes. He looks at the field, at Blackgoku at its center, floating above the city with the stillness of something that has executed its function and is present for the completion of it, not with satisfaction, not with cruelty. With the specific, detached attention of the scientist observing the result of the correction. He looks at him. At the figure he has been fighting since yesterday and has not defeated and will not defeat and has known since 1133 he would not defeat. He looks at him. He descends. 2:14 p.m. He is standing at the corner of Sigil and 8th when the field passes him. He stands in it without moving, not because he has assessed it and found it safe. The assessment was not available in time, but because the specific quality of the field when it reaches him is not the quality of a force requiring a response. It is the quality of a thing that knows what he is and what he is not. It passes him. He is still standing. Around him, the settled building from this morning, now further settled, the field having removed the infrastructure components that were still providing it lateral support, and the building finding a third equilibrium, lower than the second, still standing in the way of something that has found the floor. The checkpoint station at the corner, gone. The surveillance camera mounted at the intersection, gone. The transit placard with the regime's scheduling and the symbol in the corner, gone. The fruit vendor's stand at the corner of 9th, standing. The vendor standing behind it. Looking at the corner where the checkpoint was. Looking at the space where the checkpoint was. Looking at his fruit. He has not moved. Batman looks at him. The vendor looks at the space where the checkpoint was for a long time. Then he looks at his fruit. Then with the specific, careful, incremental movement of someone testing a thing they cannot quite believe yet, he picks up a piece of fruit and moves, not around the checkpoint's former position, through it, through the center of the space where the checkpoint was to the other side of the intersection. He stands on the other side. He looks back. He looks at the fruit in his hand. He puts it back. He goes back to his stand. He does not look at the space where the checkpoint was again. He does not need to. Batman watches him. He looks up. Above the city, above the field, above the expansion that has reached its southern limit now and is holding, the tide having found its correct dimensions, Blackgoku floats at the altitude where the cloud layer was before the heat vision tore it apart this morning and where it has not yet reformed. He floats with the stillness of something that has completed its function and is present for the last thing the function requires. Below him, at street level, Superman descends through the cleared air of a city whose management has been removed, descends through the morning and the afternoon and the 40 years of his life on this planet, and the 4 years of the decision that the morning confirmed was wrong, and the specific, irreversible, unmanageable fact of having built something from a good intention that produced this. He descends. He lands at the corner of Sigil and 8th. 30 feet from Batman. He does not look at Batman. He looks at the space where the checkpoint was. He looks at the vendor on the other side of the intersection. He looks at the building that has found its third equilibrium. He looks at the child's drawing on the second floor, the sun very large, the figure beneath it very small, the proportions honest. He looks at it for a long time. Then he kneels. Not in the dramatic sense of physical defeat. He is not physically defeated. The biology is intact. The solar reserves are depleted but present. The capacity for standing is available. He kneels in the way that people kneel when they have reached the end of the thing they have been carrying and found that the floor is closer than they thought. He kneels. Batman looks at him. He looks at the field above the city. He looks at the vendor who crossed the intersection. He looks at the child's drawing. He does not speak for a long time. Then, Batman to the corner, to the ruins, to the specific quality of what the afternoon has produced. The insurgency is scattered. What's left of the regime's assets they're not regime assets anymore. There's no regime to be assets of. He pauses. Batman, the people are still here. He looks at Superman. Batman, 8 million people are standing in a city that no longer has the structure that was managing them. In approximately 6 hours, they will start making decisions about what that means. In approximately 6 days, the decisions will start producing structures. In approximately 6 months. Superman, from the kneeling to the pavement to the honest accounting, you don't need to tell me. Batman, someone has to. Superman looks up at him. Batman, because in 6 months, in 6 years, in 6 decades, when this city has built something from the space that today created, someone will ask what it cost. And the answer needs to exist somewhere outside the story that gets told about it. He looks at Blackgoku above. Why the city? Batman, the cost was everything we built, everything we thought we were protecting, everything we were certain was the right answer. He looks back at Superman, and 8 million people who are still here and are going to have to figure out what to do with the space. Superman, very quietly, I was certain. Batman, I know. Superman, I was so certain it was right. Batman, I know, that's the most dangerous kind of certain. The corner is quiet. The vendor is tending his stand. The child's drawing is in the window. The sun is very large. 2:31 p.m. Blackgoku descends. He descends to the altitude that produces a conversation rather than a proclamation, 60 feet, low enough for the words to carry without the quality of announcement, high enough that the position communicates the appropriate distance between what he is and what is below him. He looks at Superman kneeling. He looks at him for the full, complete, unhurried duration of someone who came here for a diagnosis and has now observed the diagnosis confirmed at every level the confirmation required. The regime dismantled. The structure removed. The God who built it, kneeling at a corner in the city he built, looking at a child's drawing with the proportions that tell the truth. He looks at Batman. Batman looks at him. Batman, the even register, the voice of someone completing a transaction they entered with full knowledge of its terms. The people. Blackgoku present. Batman, the infrastructure. Blackgoku removed. Batman, the space. Blackgoku, theirs. Batman looks at him. Batman, that was always your intention. Blackgoku, the disease was the management, not the managed. He looks at Superman. Superman looks up at him, from the kneeling, from the corner, from the specific altitude of a person who has put down the thing they were carrying and found the floor, and looks at the figure above him with the gold eyes and the rose gold aura, and the expression that has not changed since the intersection at 614, that will not change. That belongs to something operating so far below the level of the emotional responses that expression communicates that the expression itself has become a kind of truth. The truth of something that is entirely what it is, without the contradictions that produce the instability that produces the design flaw that produces the cage. Superman from the floor, from the end of the carrying, and me. Blackgoku, you revealed the flaw. He looks at him. That was always your function, not to solve it, to make it visible at a scale that required addressing. A pause. You were the most complete expression of what your species produces, and the most complete demonstration of what that expression produces in turn. Superman, that's not, he stops, he looks at the drawing, that's not enough. Blackgoku, no. The word lands without cruelty. Blackgoku, it is not enough, and the insufficiency is yours to carry, not as punishment, as information. As the thing the next decision gets to use, if there is a next decision, if the carrying produces something rather than consuming it. He looks at the city below him, the 8 million people, the unmanaged afternoon, the structures being tested and found absent, and the testing continuing anyway with the specific, incremental, watchful courage of people who have been inside a management for so long that they have forgotten what unmanaged feels like, and are in the process of remembering. He looks at it. He finds it, as he finds everything, interesting. He rises. Superman from the floor to the rising, where are you going? Blackgoku, there are other worlds with the same design flaw in different configurations. The diagnosis is never finished. He looks down at Superman, the last look, the complete, unhurried, full attention look that he has given to everything since the intersection. Finding in the kneeling figure the same thing he found in the regime and the monument and the plaza and the morning's combat, the specific, precise, irreducible truth of a thing that is entirely what it is, even now, even at the floor, even with the carrying put down. He finds it. He files it. Blackgoku, the last line, delivered with the flat, complete finality of a verdict that has been reached through evidence rather than feeling, that does not require volume or drama or the performance of the weight it carries because the weight carries itself. You tried to control humanity. I freed existence from it. He rises through the cleared air above the city, through the altitude where the cloud layer is beginning to reform, through the space the heat vision tore this morning that the atmosphere is now quietly, incrementally repairing with the patient efficiency of systems that have been doing this long before the things that damaged them existed. He rises. The rose gold light diminishes with distance, not fading, receding, the specific diminishment of something. Moving away rather than becoming less. He is gone. 2:47 p.m. The corner of Sigil and 8th. Batman standing. Superman kneeling. The vendor at his stand, not looking at the space where the checkpoint was. The child's drawing in the second floor window. The city performing the first hour of its unmanaged existence with the specific, incremental, watchful quality of something finding out what it is when the management is absent. The clouds reforming above, the atmosphere doing its patient work, the sky returning to the unremarkable gray of a Tuesday afternoon in a city that has been many things and is, as of 2:47 p.m., something it has not been in 4 years. Uncertain. Uncertain in the specific way of something that has been certain for a very long time, certain of the constraint, certain of the management, certain of the fact that the symbol would be on every surface when it woke and on every surface when it went to sleep, and has had the certainty removed and is standing in the space the certainty occupied, finding that the space is larger than the certainty made it feel. Uncertain in the way of something that has room again. Batman looks at the reforming sky. He looks at the city. He looks at the vendor. He looks at Superman. He does not speak for a long time. Batman to the corner, to the afternoon, to the specific quality of what has been left behind, 6 hours. He looks at Superman. Batman before the decisions start. He picks up his equipment. Batman, we should be part of them. Superman looks up at him. At the even register, the cowl, the 4 years of operating inside the problem from a position that was always inside it rather than above it, the specific quality of someone who was never certain in the way that produced the cage. Superman from the floor, why would they want? Batman, because they're going to need help and we're what's available. He looks at the city. Batman, not to manage, not to protect, to be present for. He pauses, there's a difference. Superman looks at the drawing. The sun very large. The figure beneath it very small. He looks at it. He stands. Not with the composure is not available. The load-bearing structure that the composure was built to protect has been reorganized by the morning into something that does not require the composure because it does not require the protection. He stands without it, which is the first time in 4 years he has stood without it, and the standing without it feels like the specific, uncertain, incremental thing that the city is performing around him, the testing of the absence, the finding of what is there when the certainty is not. He stands. He looks at the space where the checkpoint was. He looks at the vendor. He looks at Batman. Superman, where do we start? Batman looks at the city. At the 8 million people in the unmanaged afternoon. At the space that was made for them by a force that came from somewhere else and found a world with a design flaw and addressed the flaw with the precision of something that understood the difference between the disease and the patient. At the space, Batman here. He moves toward the city. Superman follows. The corner of Sigil and 8th is empty. The child's drawing is in the window. The sun is very large. The figure beneath it is very small. The proportions are honest. Above the reforming clouds in the space where the rose-gold light receded into the distance between worlds, the sky is the unremarkable gray of a Tuesday afternoon, and the atmosphere is doing its patient work, and the city below it is finding out, hour by hour, block by block, person by person, what it is when no one is managing it. It is finding this out the way it found everything out before the decision, before the management, before the 4 years of the symbol on every surface. By doing it. With uncertainty. With the specific, incremental, watchful courage of things that do not know how it ends and are continuing anyway.